Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was in Highschool of the Dead. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by ShadowWolf125767 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. The beginning of it all. Fujimi Academy was considered to be one of the most prestigious in the area. In recent years, that prestige that it once held has decreased. Soon the enrollment rate has declined. In order to increase, they needed to drop the standard of the entrance exam. With the drop of standard for admission, more students have been accepted into the school, which in turn increased the number of delinquents and generally poor-performing students enrolled with each passing year. Soon trouble started to spill outside and started to cause trouble for the town that housed the school. The reputation of the school soon had plummeted to a new low. A couple students were accused of sexual assaulting a few students from a nearby high school. The headmaster of the school was soon forced into resigning for allowing the school reputation to fall as it did and brought in a new headmaster to help combat the surprising increasing number of delinquents. Akimoto Atsushi was soon called with the job offer, which surprised him since at the age of 51, he was closing in on retirement. The elderly man was what a person wouldn't call threatening. He was 5 feet 4 inches, a bit of the hefty side. With white hair and a bald spot on the top of his head, he knew his appearance wouldn't help to bring order to the rowdy students of the school he was asked to maintain. He was hesitant to accept, but soon realized the answer to his problem was actually in the school he was currently in charge. A student, this student was in his final year of junior high and was currently looking for a school to enroll in. Akimoto knew that the student will have problems getting enrolled due to the incident earlier this year. It wasn't even the boy's fault. His heart went out to the male. He had talked to the person in mind and made him an offer. The male refused. His pride wouldn't accept help that easily. Akimoto tried in vain to persuade the student to accept but failed. He gave the boy a few pieces of paper and said if he changed his mind, he'll just have to fill out the paper and hand it in. He'll fill out the rest of the paperwork for him. The very next day he was surprised to see that the student was waiting for him in his office before the school day started. He didn't expect the male to be in his office so early in the morning. He was shocked to see him at all. "Uzumaki-kun, it's a surprise to see you in my office. Is something wrong?" Akimoto said as he adjusted the collar of his shirt as he felt some sweat roll down his back. The male in front of him was 5 feet 5 inches, just slightly taller than him, but the fact that he was only 15, with spiky unkempt blonde hair and 3 whiskers on each side of his cheeks. Most would consider the male intimidating, but he was surprisingly popular with the female students and teachers. But that was beside the point. Naruto was currently wearing the school uniform, which consisted of a white dress shirt, a navy dress pants with a matching blazer over his shoulders. "Sorry for barging into your office so early in the morning like this, sensei," Naruto said as he stood up from the seat that was in front of the headmaster's desk. Akimoto quickly made his way and sat down at his desk and motioned Naruto to sit back down. "So, Uzumaki-kun, why are you here?" Akimoto started to talk, but was soon cut off when some sheets of paper landed on his desk. Looking at them for a second, in confusion, but soon realized what they were. "I had some time to think about what you said. You're right after you know. I highly doubt I will be able to get into high school around here even with my past achievements." Naruto pauses for a bit as he looked uncomfortable in talking about his situation, rubbing the back of his neck, a habit of his when he was embarrassed or awkward in what was happening. "So if you still want me to join Fujimi High School as the head of the discipline committee, then I'll go. Under certain conditions, of course," Naruto said, as he with a look of determination on his face as he stood up straight in his seat. Akimoto gave a gentle smile as he stood up and went around his desk, sticking his hand out for Naruto to shake. "Of course, I will be happy to have you, Uzumaki-kun. We can talk more about this at the end of the week when we both have more free time." Naruto quickly stood up and shook the man's hand, and made his way out the door, but before he closed the door to the office, Akimoto spoke up. "Uzumaki-kun, did something happen yesterday to make you change your mind?" Akimoto asked in curiosity. The blonde male was all stubborn as a male after all. Naruto stood silent for a moment before his mind drifted for a moment, remembering last night's events. "Yes, something did happen. It's taken care of," Naruto said. Akimoto nodded his head before reminding him if he needed anything to just ask. "I will, sensei. I'll see you later." Naruto then closed the door and left the faculty office with the surprised looks and glares from the teachers that were already there. Unfortunately, he was already used to the stares, glares and whispers from both teachers and students. It was only a couple of months ago that he was received with praises and admiration from the occupations of the school. Soon that changed and was then looked at with venom. It hurts. But the blonde knew that the people around him never cared about him. Even his old club mates resented him. This only allowed them to express their dislike publicly. He even got into a couple of fights with some of the students, but they were idiots for trying. Who in their right mind pick a fight with a trained fighter? Especially a national level boxer, even if he was in junior high. He messed up a few faces since then, but some people just don't get it. Oh well. Soon Naruto arrived at his homeroom class. As soon as he opened the door, the noise that was coming from the room stopped. Closing the door, and walked to his seat in the second row, next to the window. Without a word said, he sat down, and everyone began to talk again. Why is he still here? I thought he would drop out already. Who cares why he's here? We're all in danger with him here. It's a shame that the best-looking guy in class is a no-good criminal. Did you hear that he got into a fight with a couple of students in 3C yesterday? No way. I heard he ended up beating this high schooler near the arcade. Don't they have anything else to talk about? Naruto thought as he looked out the window in boredom, trying to drown out the noise in the classroom. Soon the teacher walked in and the students began to sit down to start the class. Not interested in hearing what the teacher was saying, he began to daydream, but didn't notice a pair of blue eyes watching him. It soon drifted downward to the inside of her desk. I hope he'll enjoy this, the blue-eyed girl thought as she looked at the orange-colored bento before brushing a strand of purple hair behind her ear. And resumed to listening to the teacher, but every once in a while would look over at the blonde male. Okay, every time for lunch, you know the drill. The male teacher said before taking off to get some food as well. The classroom was soon filled with noise again as desks were moved, people talking to their neighbors and friends. Some ran out the class to get some food from the school store before they ran out of the good stuff. Sighing to himself, Naruto didn't have a lot to eat in the morning since his mother had overslept and didn't have time to make lunch for either of them. He forgave his mother. It was rare for him to bring meals from home to school. He will either forego lunch or brave the school store for some bread. Reaching for his pockets to get his wallet out to see how much money he had, 0.5000 yen. Well, at least it's enough to get lunch and some takeout for later. Naruto muttered, but before he could stand up from his, a shadow of a person soon was hovering over him and his desk. But what was odd was that the class stood silent, before whispers erupted from the students. Most of it was, why was she standing over him? Turning around to see this person, Naruto couldn't help raise an eyebrow. Standing in front of him was a purple-haired girl that was put up into a long ponytail, reaching her shoulders with a weird triangle fringe in the front. She had dark blue eyes, about 5 feet 4 inches, wearing the school female uniform that consisted of a navy blazer with a white scarf and a navy blue skirt that reached her knees, with a pair of black loafers. Her defining feature, which made her very popular among both male and female students and teacher alike, was a large pair of breasts that the young women had that was larger than the majority of females in the school. Seiko Busujima, third-year student, captain of the kendo club in school and the most popular student of the school. Excuse me, Uzumaki-san, is it okay if we talk for a moment in private? Seiko said with a slight smile on her face. Naruto stayed silent before he nodded his head in confirmation before he stood up and the two went to a private location. As the two walked, some students noticed them as the most well-known students, both good and bad reasons, were walking together, began to talk to one another about what they just saw, and soon rumors began to fly. As the duo kept walking, they soon realized that there was only one place on school property where they could get some privacy, the roof. When they arrived at their destination, the two looked around the white-tiled rooftop, making sure no one was with them and made sure they weren't followed. Once they were content, the two faced each other. Silence filled the air as the two stood quite both unsure how to start the conversation. So Uzumaki-san, I want to thank you about what happened yesterday. So thank you for everything, Seiko said before she bowed to show how thankful she was for the male interference. If he hadn't shown, who knows what couldn't have happened. I highly doubt you needed my help, but I know what you meant. While it was a bit excessive, I understand at certain situations sometimes some excessive force is necessary, Naruto said as Seiko flinched when he mentioned what had happened. She remembered at the memory of the old man attempted rape. As she drifted off into her memory, Naruto's eyes looked at the large bento that was in her hand. Busujima-san, you should really start to eat your bento. We only have so much time left? Seiko quickly jolted out of her daydream when she remembered what she was carrying. Actually, I made this for you, Seiko said, as she presented the bento to Naruto, who simply raised his eyebrow as he accepted the meal. Really, you made this for me? Naruto asked in surprised tone in his voice. Seiko nodded her with a bright smile. Yes, I know it isn't much, but after all you did to help me. If you weren't there when you were, I might have ended up with blood on my hands. The blonde flinched slightly but contained himself as Seiko continued to talk. I remembered that you tended to buy what was available at the school store, so I made enough for 2 meals, Seiko said as made her way toward the wall near the door and sat down, motioning for him to sit down with her. Naruto was hesitant, but sat down next to her and unwrapped the large bento to see 2 different types of bento, one blue and purple. Giving Seiko one and then opened the up bento, inside was rice and curry. The fragrance soon filled the air, causing his stomach to growl. Naruto grabbed the plastic spoon that was packed with the bento, picking up a decent size of curry before they placed it in his mouth. Seiko was silent, as her heart began to beat faster, hoping that her meal was delicious or at least good. Naruto swallowed the food, before he grabbed another spoonful and then another. Siko let out a sign of relief before she began to dig into her meal. The moment the curry touched her, she visibly grimaced. It was inedible. Signing to herself at her disappointing cooking skills, she looked in confusion as she noticed Naruto was still eating her curry. Within a minute, Naruto was done as he placed the bento down. It was bad, Naruto stated, as he leaned back against the wall with his eyes closed. Then why did you finish it if you didn't like it? Siko said as she was curious and a bit sad at the statement but knew that it was true. You made it for me. It would be rude if I didn't finish it, Naruto said as his mind wandered to his godfather. He should pay him, Yuriko and Saya a visit. He rarely has time to see her since she goes to a private school in town. He'll go during the weekend with his mother, or something. I'm sorry about the curry turning out so bad. I thought I followed the recipe exactly, Siko said as she looked at her own bento still filled with the curry. Curry tends to be fickle, like any recipe. It depends on the ingredients put in. Just one bad ingredient can ruin a dish. Naruto stood up, reaching down, grabbing her bento and began to eat it. If you want to make it up to me, just keep practicing your cooking. I'll eat whatever you make in return. Siko was a bit wide-eyed at the blonde before she smiled softly. She felt her face flush a bit, but ignored it, standing up and with a determined look on her face. Uzumaki-san, I will accept your terms. I will continue making you lunch, for as long as you accept them, Siko said, causing him to frown a bit. Call me Naruto. I hate it when people call me Uzumaki. Siko smiled, but nodded, seeing his discomfort. Then I will call you Naruto-kun. In turn you can call me Siko. Naruto nodded, not having a problem with calling her by her first name. Taking out his phone to see that it was almost time to head back to class. We should head back, Siko. Naruto returned his phone back into his pocket, before he began to leave with Siko, right behind. Of course, Naruto-kun, Siko said as the two began to talk about random things from schoolwork, hobbies, likes and dislikes, on their back to their classroom. Little did they know that one moment can change everything. And that bond they formed will be the key to their survival in less than 4 years. Chapter 2, Building the Foundation. Akimoto was having a slightly stressful day, well, to be more accurate, a stressful hour. Wiping the sweat that was accumulating on his forehead with his handkerchief. The cause of stress was mostly due to the blonde student in front of him. He had asked the blonde to come after school to discuss his condition for joining Fujimi High School as the disciplinary committee leader. But the conditions were well outrageous. Uzumaki-kun, please be reasonable, Akimoto pleaded a bit. The younger male was still stubborn as before. I am reasonable. My conditions are a reflection of the work that I'm going to be putting in and the danger I'm putting myself through to help clean up the garbage that the administrators have allowed for the past couple of years, Naruto said with his arms crossed and feet kicked up on the man's desk. Akimoto groaned. He wished the blonde would have some respect for his desk. But still, free rein on when you can leave school grounds, allowing you to decide how students will be punished, exemptions from class, access to the staff's private Wi-Fi and your own private office, in which you're allowed to decorate with how you feel. Akimoto ran through the demands again. The only thing he can do was maybe getting him access to the school Wi-Fi and the occasional exemption from a single class. He will have to run this through with the board. I'm willing to pay for the office furniture and stuff of that nature, if that is the problem, Naruto stated, not really seeing what the big deal is, causing Akimoto to sigh. With that, Akimoto sat up straight and stood up, collected his things, grabbing his bag and made his way to the door. Just before he touched the doorknob, he stopped. Are you sure you will be able to take care of this? If I can get everything you asked for, will you help this old fool fix this mess up? Akimoto said without turning around to see if Naruto was looking at him. Sensei, there is no doubt in my mind that I will be able to get the job done, Naruto stated. Hearing this, Akimoto groaned, before he opened the door and left. I'll see what I can do. I have a meeting with the administrators Saturday. Come to my office next week, Akimoto said, leaving Naruto alone with his thoughts. Did he demand too much? With a shrug of his shoulders, he stood up and left the office as well. When he did, he noticed that the teachers had all left as well. It was only 3:30. They must have wanted to leave for the weekend just as much as any the other student. He then noticed a feminine shadow outside the faculty office window. It was obvious to him who it was. Siko, the kendo club doesn't end for like another 20 minutes. Why are you outside the faculty office? Naruto said, the purple-haired girl, who just smiled at him. Actually, I let the kendo club out early. The majority of the members were complaining about training on a Friday. You know, the usual, Siko stated with a shrug. Naruto nodded his head. Most people don't have the discipline nor the will to give it their all, in the same way the two of us would do. Naruto said. The two were passionate about their respective arts. Siko loves kendo. since it allows her to be closer to her rather distant father, not to mention allows her to use and improve her skills as a swordsman. It's only been a couple of days since the day on the roof, and the pair have already become somewhat inseparable, which had started worrying some students and teacher. They even tried to force Siko away from him. It didn't work since she will end up always going back to him. Some student tried to force him to stop talking to Siko, anyone who tried to end up regretting that, since it ended up with them with a fist to the person's nose and or throat. True, but I just wish they took it as seriously as I do. Siko pouted a little but stopped when she remembered something. Speaking of which, you said that your mother trained you in kenjutsu. Why don't you and I have a little match? She was curious about how skilled her friend, and of course by extension his mother, were with a blade. Actually, both my mother and godfather taught me Ijustu and kenjutsu. They wanted to pass down their technique to a member of the family. Naruto mentioned. This made her more curious about his family. If you want to spar, I don't mind, but I'm not that good. You have an interested family. The fact that your mother is skilled enough to teach you martial arts and kenjutsu make me want to meet her even more, Siko said, as she imagined what kind of woman the blonde's mother was. While Siko was daydreaming, Naruto's eyes wandered around the empty halls of the school. To think that in a few months, he won't ever see this place again. All is well, just too many bad memories. Just as they reached the school lockers, Siko went to her locker first. When she finished putting on her outside shoes, Siko noticed that her blonde friend was staring into the school's trophy and award cabinet. Naruto-kun, is there something you want to talk about? Siko asked, noticing the solemn look on the male's face, shaking his head a bit. Turning toward her, the look disappeared almost instantly as Naruto mumbled that it was nothing. Naruto-kun, if ever want to talk, you know I'll be there if you need it, right? Siko had no idea what caused him to act like that. Naruto was well known around the school for being one of the best athletes the school that had to offer. Even the country recognizes his efforts and was considered to the best boxer under 18. Then all suddenly he had left his club and was soon vilified by the students and teacher. She never paid attention to the rumors, since they tended to quickly fade away or become warped by countless tellings. Now that she was friends with Naruto, she wanted to know what had happened to him. But not at the cost of their new friendship. She was patient enough to wait until he was ready. Siko, thanks, I don't that I can talk about my problems so easily. After all, what's done is done, Naruto said with a hint of finality. Taking the hint, she kept quiet about it. Siko and Naruto both left the school in silence. The two walked down a nearby neighborhood. The pair kept walking, unable to take the awkwardness. Siko said the first thing on her mind. You doing anything this weekend? Siko asked, wanting to end the silence that plagues the area around them. I'm going to my godparents' home later tonight, but I have got nothing that I need to do, Naruto said, not really paying attention. Siko paused for a moment. She wondered why she said that. Seeing an opportunity, she decided to continue the conversation. Then do you want to hang out tomorrow? Siko asked, causing him to freeze in place. Naruto turned to look at Siko, standing still with her arm behind her back. Why would you want to hang out with me on a Saturday? Naruto asked, still in shock. Siko nodded her head with a small smile. Unseen by him, she nervously twiddled her thumbs. Why? Siko spoke with a bemused expression on her face, trying to hide her true thought. What's wrong with a person asking their friend out to hang out on a weekend? Lucky for her, Naruto was too much in shock to notice. It's no that, well, Naruto spoke, before he stopped for a second. I just never been asked to hang out before. He soon began to rub the back of his neck in embarrassment. At his age, he was never really asked to hang out with anyone, male or female. The only people he saw regularly was his mother, her best friend, and her family. Now was Siko turned to be shocked. Nobody asked him to hang out before? Well, she couldn't judge him, as she was never asked to hang out with anybody either. Sure, her fellow classmates and club member would only ask her out as an obligation, not wanting her to feel left. Which caused her to feel left out. Siko was considered to be unapproachable by her most peers, the same people who held her in high esteem. She soon felt a kinship between Naruto and her form. They were so similar despite their own situations. Her face lit up at the thought, before she focused her attention back on her friend. Then that means that I will be your first. Don't worry, I'll be gentle, Siko teased the blonde, who soon blushed a bit at the innuendo, causing her to laugh. Naruto grumbles under his breath, as he quickly started to walk away. Siko quickly caught up to him, laughing at his reaction. It was nice to let loosen up a bit. She hadn't had this much fun just talking to somebody well ever. Thinking about it, why was she so comfortable around Naruto? Before long the two ended up at a crossroad. Naruto will have to make a right while Siko has to continue down the same road to get to their houses. The two bid each other farewell, but as Siko began to walk away, Naruto called out to her. Yo Siko, if you still want to hang out tomorrow, I'll meet you here at 10 in the morning. Siko's eyes widened, turning around before flashing him a smile before she told him not to be late. The sword woman continued home with a skip in her step. Naruto stayed for a bit before he decided to start walking home. Later. I'm home, Naruto called out as he entered his house. He sat down at the front door as he began to take off his shoes. As he did this, soon began to hear footsteps coming from upstairs and made its way towards him. Naruto stood up and braced himself as best he could, as he heard a feminine voice screamed his name. The voice rang, as Naruto felt the person tackle him, but as he tried to stop himself from falling. The back of his knee was hit by an unknown force. He was then forced onto the wooden floor of his house. Grunting slightly in pain at the surprise attack, Naruto soon felt something sitting on his stomach. Naruto! Where were you, mister? You should have gotten home a long time ago. Naruto sighed as he looked up at the person speaking. Sad part was, this was a normal occurrence in his house. Ka-san, I walk home, it takes over an hour to get back, Naruto said to his mother Kushina, who crossed her arms over her chest. She was considered by many people, both male and female, to be an extremely attractive woman. Despite the fact that she was only 33, and looked like the way she has, made her very popular with the neighbors and coworkers. A lot of women asked her what she did to look so good. A man had even asked her to model for his company. Which Naruto quickly punched the guy in the face. After all, the man had followed his mother for a good 7 minutes. He deserved it. Don't you dare lie to me, mister. I know for a fact that it only takes you 40 minutes to walk here from school. Sometimes less, Kushina said as moved her face closer to his with a glare and a slight sneer on her face. So I'll ask again. Where were you? Naruto was quiet as he stared into his mother's violet eyes. As he stared into them, his eyes began to wander. He knew exactly what the other males saw. Kushina was currently wearing a white tank top and an old pair of black gym shorts. Naruto knew that his mother was beautiful. He wasn't blind. Looking at her perky bountiful breast, a curvy body, slim waist, and the fact that she had a great ass to boot. But the most eye-catching thing for him was her luscious red hair. In his opinion, was her best feature. Naruto hated himself. The fact he had described his mother in such a way. No son should have thoughts like this. It sickened him. I was at school, Naruto stated, pushing his previous thoughts out of his mind. I had a meeting with the principal to discuss. Did you get into another fight again? How many times do I have to tell you that you shouldn't fight anymore? Do I need to call a lawyer? Kushina said, more concerned about the other kid's safety. Not really worried about her son. It was very unlikely that he would get hurt. Naruto rolled his eyes at his mother for assuming the worst. Well, to be fair, he didn't help the situation at times. No, I didn't get into a fight. Surprisingly, haven't had one in a while. The reason I was late was because I was discussing with the principal about going to Fujimi Academy, Naruto said. Kushina let out a sigh of relief, then turned to horror when she recognized the school that her son had just mentioned. Wait, you decide to go to Fujimi? Kushina asked with a pale expression. Naruto nodded his head as he began to stand up, forcing his mother to get off him. Isn't that the school with the increasing number of delinquents? Naruto answered with a simple yep. Kushina followed her son, talking his ear off. Honey, why don't you try to go to a different school instead? I know, what about the school Saya-chan is looking into? Saya was actually his mother's best friend's daughter, who was actually a year younger than him and one of the smartest people he knew. Saya is also one of the highest students at her school. She can go to any school she wants. Actually, why is she looking at high schools anyways? Isn't she still a second year? Naruto exclaimed as he walked into the kitchen with a frantic red head following. So what, you have good grades, not to mention you were in the boxing club for 3 years. You even won all your matches that you have been in and have multiple trophies to prove it. Kushina tried to reason with Naruto, who simply ignored her while he rummaged through around the fridge, moving the leftovers from the night before grabbing a water bottle from the back. Naruto was quiet, but Kushina could sense that he wasn't happy. Finally, he turned to Kushina and said, Ka-san, you know I wouldn't be accepted to any other school. Besides, the delinquents are the reason why I'm going to Fujimi anyways. Kushina stood silent as her son's words made no sense to her. Naruto silently sipped his water and began to leave, making it to the hall until she jumped onto his back, screaming, what does that even mean? Wrapping her arms around his neck, constricting the blood vessels in his neck. Naruto began to gurgle as he struggled to breath and to get his mother off him as well. Reaching up to her forearms, Naruto realized that it was locked in tight. Unable to remove the hold, he decided to make use of his larger frame by falling backwards. Kushina grunted in pain as his body weight fell on her, making her loosen the hold on his neck, letting him take advantage. Grabbing her right arm, he flung her over his shoulder without releasing it, missing the small table that was in the hall. As she grunted from the impact, he quickly pulled her right arm into an armbar. Before he could fully extend the arm, Kushina grabbed her hand, trying to prevent it from moving. Knowing that she will lose in the contest of strength, she quickly made her sit up. Reacting to this Naruto, he pulled her forward, allowing him to put his legs around her arm and neck. Squeezing his thighs, Kushina, knowing that she couldn't escape the triangle hold, she tapped his left leg 3 times. Naruto quickly released her from the hold. Kushina rubbed her neck in discomfort. Before standing up and stretching her limbs out, improved grappling match. She smiled at him, whose breathing was a bit off. I'm glad you have been practicing, Naruto. You got a lot better at grappling, but you're still a bit slow in your reaction. Kushina said, giving her son a big hug, proud that he was able to beat her in a match. Even though it was grapple only, she was still more skilled than him with a sword though. He was making improvements, but preferring to solve things with his fist. Thank you, but did you really have to that? Naruto said as he rubbed his neck a little as he looked at his bottle of water that spilt all over the floor. What a waste. Of course, constant vigilance. After all, you have been using what I taught you, pretty much every week. Kushina said with a knowing grin. Well, she wasn't wrong. Her eyes widened as she remembered an important fact, running into the living room looking at the clock. It was 5:30 p.m. Oh shit! We're going to be late, Naruto, get your ass into the shower and get ready. We are having dinner at my friend's, remember? Kushina shouted as she pushed Naruto out of the way to get ready in time. Naruto rolled his eyes, with a slightly amusing expression on his face. As he thought, what am I going to do? He soon went up to his room and went to get ready. He wondered how Saya doing? Much later the same day. After a quick shower, the two quickly got into Kushina's car and drove off to the Takagi's estate. It ended up being a good 15-minute drive to get there, as the woman had broken many laws to make it in time. Soon driving up the hill that leads to the estate. Arriving at the gate, an older male security officer, who looked to be in his mid-40s, approached the vehicle. Seeing who it was, the older man let out a friendly smile. Kushina-chan, how have you been? It's been a long time since you last visited. The older man said, as Kushina nodded her head in agreement, looking apologetic as she did. Nice to see you too, Aji-san. Sorry, I haven't had time to come over, I've been busy. How is your wife, and what about your granddaughter? Didn't she start kindergarten this year? Kushina happily chatted with the older man about his granddaughter. Naruto just rolled his eyes as he looked at the neighboring forest that surrounds the estate. It was something he enjoyed playing in when he was younger. He wondered if his secret tunnel was still there? Yes, she just started this year. I'll show the pictures that her father took on her first day. They are both doing great, thanks for asking. The two of you should come over dinner one day. I will admit it's a shame that my granddaughter wasn't able to go to your school, she would have loved you. The conversation then continued for a good minute or so. Oh, there's Sparrow in that bush. Well, it was nice to see you again, Kushina-chan. And you too, Naruto-kun, you really have grown up to be a handsome young man. The man said with a haughty laugh. Naruto gave a small bow to the elder. The male quickly left to open the front gates to the estate. Within seconds it opened, and then they drove to the garage. Leaving the vehicle there, the mechanic wasn't there to keep an eye on it, but it sold be safe. The two walked through the small courtyard. Kushina stopped at the pond for a bit, to make sure she looks good, before they reached the front door. Ka-san, you look great. Come on, we are already late. Naruto said as he grabbed a hold his mother's shoulder, and dragged her away from the pond. Kushina pouted at him. There's nothing wrong with making sure that I do. After all, it's been a while since we have seen them. Technically, I went to see them just over a week ago. Ka-san, you haven't seen them in over 5 months. Oba-san is going to be pissed that you're late. Naruto mentioned as Kushina shivered a bit, knowing that her best friend wasn't to be happy when they meet. Kushina leaned into her son, as he simply moved his hand up and down her shoulder in both comfort and warmth. She wished she brought a coat. Reaching the door, Naruto rang the doorbell. The door opened to reveal a younger male in a butler's uniform, who took a quick look at the two and realized who they were, before bowing. Uzumaki-sama, please come in. Yuriko-sama has been waiting in the dining room for the past 5 minutes. The male said as he motioned for the two following him to the dining room. Even though the two knew where it was located, they allowed the male butler to show them where it was. As the trio walked through the halls, Naruto noticed the man was sneaking glances at his mother. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto let out a low growl. The male jumped slightly as he kept his eyes forward, refusing to look back. Kushina looked at her son in confusion, reaching out with her right hand and gave his hand a small squeeze. Looking up at her, he let out tech as he returns the sentiment. Seeing that he relaxed, she looked around the estate to see if anything changed in the few months that she was away. Here we are, Uzumaki-sama. At the moment, only Yuriko-sama is here, but Saya-sama and Sachiro-sama will be over here shortly. The man quickly bowed as knocked on the door that led to the dining room, before opening it. Yuriko-sama, your guests have arrived. The butler bowed at his master, turning around and began to walk away as fast as he can, making sure not to make eye contact with the blonde devil. Naruto watched the man leave, focusing his attention to the women that was seated to the right side of the head of the table. Yuriko stood up and made her way over to them. She was a long purple-haired woman, with the bangs being shorter than the rest of her hair and parted to either side of her face. She had a slender figure with and rather large breast, that was enhanced by her favorite red dress that she was wearing. The dress was rather thin itself, and to complete the look, there was a white silk cloth wrapped around her arms and lower back. She carried herself with such confidence that one could mistake her for nobility. Naruto had to admit she knew how to dress to impress. "Kushina-chan, how you have been?" Yuriko said as she lifted her arms to give her best friend a hug. Letting out a silent sigh of relief, Kushina gave her a large smile and ran to hug her back. As she moved close, Yuriko continued to speak. "It must have been months since you came to see your best friend," Yuriko said as she suddenly grasped Kushina's cheek and began to pinch them. Kushina flailed her arms as she started to scream in pain. "I'm sorry," Kushina tried to say, but ended up sounding like a bunch of gibberish. Yuriko didn't let up, as she chuckled at her friend's waving arms and panic expression. Soon, felt that she stopped since Kushina was punished enough. "Meh, it can wait for a minute or two." "It's really good to see you again," honey, Yuriko said, as released her hold of Kushina's cheek and began to hug her for real. Kushina pouted as tears welled up in her eyes from the pain. Rubbed her sore red cheeks, that made her look like a tomato. Looking at her clothes, Yuriko raised an eyebrow. Kushina was wearing a sparkly navy blue mini dress that reached her mid-thigh and matching high heels. It seemed like she was going to have a night out on the town then having dinner. Just a hint of makeup, she remembered that dress. It was the same one she bought Kushina for her birthday a few years ago. While not the most appropriate attire at the moment, Yuriko was just glad she actually wore the damn thing. Not liking the idea of the dress going to waste. "Naruto-kun, it's good to see you too. I'm sorry I wasn't here the last time you visited," Yuriko said, turning her attention to the sole male in the room. Reaching over, as she gave him a hug as well. "Don't worry about it, Oba-san," Naruto said. Yuriko pouted as she placed her hand on her cheek. "I thought I told you to call me Oka-san," Yuriko said with an exaggerated look of sadness on her face, as Naruto rolled his eyes as Kushina jabbed his side. "Not going to happen anytime soon," Naruto said. At this time Yuriko began to look over Naruto's clothes this time. The blonde was wearing a navy blue dress shirt that had a dark orange etching near the bottom, and a pair of black dress pants with matching shoes and socks. Yuriko couldn't help but grin a bit. He and his mother seemed to be wearing matching outfits. It was adorable. "Sorry I'm late, Ka-san. It took longer to dry my hair than I thought." A muffled voice came from behind the doors, which soon opened to reveal a young girl. She was below average height for her age, with long pink hair, which she was keeping in pigtails. Her hair also has two thin, long bangs at the sides, two thin strands of hair over the left side of her forehead, and a spiky larger portion of hair covering the right side of her forehead. But her three defining traits were her fierce orange eyes, furrowed eyebrows, really large breasts just as big as the other two women in the room. "Do you know when Naruto? Oka-san," the girl said in surprise. Kushina quickly ran up to give her a bone-crushing hug. The girl struggled since the redhead was crushing her head into her chest. "Saya-chan, you grown so much. Well, only in one area, but that's area that counts for a lot," Kushina said as Saya continued to suffocate before she passed out. The older redhead released her. "Hello, Oka-san, I didn't think you would be here already," Saya said in between breaths. She was happy to see Kushina. She was her role model. Turning her attention to the male in the room, Saya turned quiet as she avoided looking into his eyes. "It's good to see you, too, Naruto-kun." Naruto nodded in response. Saya felt herself blush. Placing her arms behind her back, she subtly thrust out her chest out, making it seem bigger. The two older women in the room knew that she was fishing for a compliment from the blonde. They were both very amused and disappointed by the way it played out. "It's nice to see you too, Saya. Aren't you a little underdressed for this?" Naruto asked with his arms crossed and eyebrow raised. Saya's eye began to twitch in annoyance, looking at her clothes she was wearing. It was rather simple, a pink and beige blouse with frills around the collar running down the center. A black frilly skirt that reached her ankles. To be honest, he was kind of reminded of a gothic Lolita if the blouse was a different color, of course. Keeping his mouth shut seemed to anger Saya as she began to yell at him. "Aren't I allowed to wear whatever I want in my own house? You don't!" Saya screamed before she let a humph, as she walked and sat down at the dining room table. Naruto felt like bashing in his head, but felt the need to rub his temples, to relieve the pressure building up. Following her example, he sat down. The two friends looked at each other, before letting out a bemused chuckle over their children's behavior. The two haven't changed much over the years. Soon the dining room door opened again, as two older men in suits came in talking to one another. One looked more like a traditional Japanese man with slicked down hair that was parted down the middle. Light skin, and wearing the other hair was spiker than the other male, but his most defining feature was his intimidating gaze, that resembled a predatory animal. Yuriko smiled before she went up to kiss the spiky-haired man on the cheek. I thought you wouldn't make it in time, dear, Yuriko said, as the man nodded in an apologetic manner. As he then opened his mouth to speak, Kushina came up from behind her and shouted, Soichiro, you're late. Soichiro looked at Kushina. With a small grin he spoke, It's been a long time, Kushina-san. Sorry I'm late, but now that I'm here we can start dinner. I hope it's no trouble if we have an extra guest. He then motioned to the other man next to him as he bowed, saying I'm sorry for the intrusion. My name is Tetsudora Doi. Nah, don't worry about it, Kushina said, waving off her friend's concern. The male smiled shyly at her, who returned it wholeheartedly. The group then sat down at the table. The head of the table was taken up by Soichiro with Tetsudora and Kushina at his right side, with Saya and Naruto on his left respectfully. Sitting at the other end of the table was his wife Yuriko. The butlers and maids soon came in with plates of food and drinks, both non-alcoholic and alcoholic. After the meals and drink were distributed, the servants left. Everyone was soon having their own conversation. Yuriko was talking to Kushina, and Soichiro was talking with his friend. While the two teens kept quiet, Saya looked over at Naruto, who had a strange look on his face that bugged her. Naruto was sitting with his arms crossed as he kept staring forward with a glare. Wondered what he was the cause of this. After knowing each other for years, she was able to figure out almost all his quirks. Right now, he was not a happy person. Seeing this, she decided to focus his mind elsewhere. So, aren't you going to start your final exams in a few weeks? Do you think you'll do well? Saya said, trying to start a conversation with Naruto. Glancing at the pink-haired girl, Naruto clicked his tongue and decided to reluctantly engage in the talk. Yes, we start in 2 weeks. We have 4 days of exams before we go on break for the holidays, Naruto stated, picking up his fork to pick at his meal. Saya wasn't satisfied. She decided to try to keep the blonde talking. I don't think I have anything to worry about. Kasuing Saya to frown. It's that kind of thinking that will prevent you from getting into high school, Saya said with a bit of venom. She always hates lazy people, especially when they don't take anything seriously. Doesn't he care for his future? She was generally worried over him. At least, Naruto wasn't like the other male that she grew up knowing. I have already been accepted, Naruto commented offhand as tried to resume his previous activity. Saya felt her jaw drop. What school? Saya said in surprise, curiosity and skepticism. While his scores were pretty decent, at least by her standards. Definitely better than most people at her school. Which was saying a lot. She knew that he'd been slacking off the past couple of months. Not to mention, he hadn't talked about taking any high school entrance exams when he was over. I'm actually curious as well. What school are you going to? Yuriko asked, before glancing over the table. Her husband was still talking to his friend, but noticed that he was too busy paying attention to their own conversation. Looking over at Kushina, who was pouting at the moment, then watched as she downed her glass of wine. Obviously unhappy about Naruto's choice of school. Shaking her head at her friend's behavior and returned her attention to the teens. It couldn't be that bad. I decided to go to Fujimi Academy, Naruto said. Oh, that was bad. Now Yuriko knew why the redhead was so upset. She couldn't blame her. Reaching her hand over to patted Kushina back in comfort. Wait, you managed to get into Fujimi Academy? At least you're going to a good school. I was worried you'll end up going Kasagayama High or something. Saya spoke with relief, not knowing about Fujimi's falling reputation. It wasn't surprising. The only people who know about the school, beside the people involved with Fujimi, were adults in town and the people that dealt with said students. I was actually asked to join by the new headmaster, Naruto added, as a pair of eyes soon fell on him. The person kept quiet, as he listened more intently. Oh, really? Is it because of your boxing club activities? Saya asked. Naruto stood silent. Yuriko looked saddened, taking a sip of wine. She nor Soichiro had never told Saya that Naruto had left the boxing club at his school in the summer. They'd prefer not to change the teens' relationship. Something like that, Naruto said cryptically, not wanting to continue, rubbing the back of his neck as he felt uncomfortable with the attention. I hope you'll at least keep up your schoolwork. They probably have it a lot more stricter up there, Saya said. At this time Soichiro spoke up, injecting himself into the conversation, making the room fall silent. Naruto-kun, are you sure about this? You should know about Fujimi's reputation. Will you be ready to handle whatever the school throws at you? Everyone stopped. The blonde looked at the older male. Everyone in the room were able to read into the underlining message, except Saya, who simply thought it was about the school's academic achievements. Naruto stared at the older man. Finally he nods his head saying, yes, I'm sure. Then that's that. You shouldn't worry about it, Saya, Soichiro said, with a hint of finality. Saya said nothing as she looked at the ground, but she got the message. As the adults went back to their conversation, Naruto couldn't help but notice Saya's mood dropped. Reaching over and grabbing her hand, Saya jumped slightly at the sudden contact. Looking down at her hand, she gave him a grateful smile as he simply rubbed his thumb against her hand to comfort her. The dinner had continued for an hour or so, that when both Sukro and Tetsura decided to leave to get back to whatever they were doing before. The rest had stayed in the dining room. Soichiro with Tetsura both entered his private office. Sitting at his desk, Soichiro quickly grabbed some paperwork to look over. As he did this, Tetsura's mind went back to the red-headed Uzumaki. She was beautiful, smart, funny, and he had greatly enjoyed the few conversions they had with each other. He was willing to admit, he was absolutely smitten. "What are you thinking about, old friend?" Soichiro said, without looking up to know that his friend had jumped up slightly in surprise. He wasn't blind, he definitely noted the way Tetsura looked at the female Uzumaki. "Oh I was thinking about," Tetsura said, trying to think up an excuse to use, not wanting to seem like he was just lusting after Soichiro's wife's best friend. "Relax, Tetsura." Soichiro raised his hand to stop him. "I already noticed." Tetsura's eyes fell downward, ashamed that he caught staring. "Like I said, relax, there is nothing to be ashamed about. / I know, but still, it's rather impolite to stare at a married woman like that," Tetsura said, as Soichiro raised a confused eyebrow until he remembered. "Kushina was married," Soichiro said, as Tetsura looked confused. "Wait? Was?" Tetsura asked, as Soichiro nodded his head. "Yes, Kushina was married, but unfortunately, her husband, Minato, had passed away just over 15 years ago." Soichiro stopped to offer a silent prayer to the deceased man. Tetsura stayed silent, as the new information filled his mind. Soichiro raised his hand, stopping him from continuing. "Tetsura, I already know what you're going to ask. I'll just say this. Kushina, is grown women whom she wants to date is none of my concern." "Really? Phew, that's a bit of relief to hear. Soichiro, do you think I have a chance?" Tetsura asked, genuinely curious about his chances to get to date the widow. That was when Soichiro let out a hearty laugh. Taken back at the sudden action, Tetsura waited for him to stop. He had felt a little hurt. "I'm sorry, old friend. I didn't mean it like that. But I have to ask, haven't you noticed anything off during dinner?" Soichiro asked. Tetsutaro then began thinking back. He couldn't really remember much of what had happened. Just bits and pieces. This only increases Soichiro's amusement. "I'm sorry to say this, but it's very unlikely that she will go on a date with you." Seeing a bewildered and saddened look on the man's face, he decided to clarify. "You see, my wife had tried to set Kushina up on a date multiple times, but one of two things happen. The first is she would refuse to even see them, the second is she rejects them up front before just as the date begins. Besides that, you will have to overcome the biggest obstacle for her heart, her son." "Her son?" Tetsura said, slowly with a bemused expression on his face. Soichiro nodded, causing him to laugh as he did this. He noted the serious expression on his face. Realizing that it wasn't a joke, he stopped laughing. "You're serious? No offense, Soichiro, but why would a teenager care about who his mother is dating?" Soichiro shocked his head before he stood up from his desk and placing his hand on top of his friend's shoulder. "Kushina and Naruto aren't like other parent and child. Kushina is a single mother, she took care of Naruto by herself, even with my wife's help. The two are close, the two went through a lot, because of this Naruto-kun ended up being more protective of her and vice versa." Soichiro tried to explain, as his friend's mind began to process the new information. Thinking that the talk was over, Soichiro walked back to his desk to finish his paperwork. "So if I get close to her son," Tetsura spoke, before he was shot down by the other male. "No, that wouldn't work, Naruto-kun already knows about your feelings," Soichiro said as his thoughts of the young blonde. He wondered if Naruto would be willing to come over next week to practice his sword skill with him. He quite enjoyed the time they share. "He know!" Tetsura exclaimed out loud, Soichiro then focusing his attention back on the man in front of him. "Yes, that's why I asked if you noticed anything off during dinner." The blonde had kept his eye on the man the whole time he was there. He wasn't blind to the way Tetsura reacted while he has stared at his mother. Naruto-kun is rather perceptive for his age. He won't let you get close to her. Talk to her, yes? Date her, well, that's another story. Kushina values her son, above all else. She wouldn't hesitate to reject someone, if she knows that Naruto-kun hates them. It had happened before. Tetsura fell silent. He had just met the most gorgeous woman, who he was willing to date and possibly more, the first in years. But it was going to be shot down by her son, before he got the chance. It left a bad taste in his mouth. Maybe he can convince Naruto to allow him take his mother out to coffee, dinner sometime. Thinking it through, he decides to go talk with the male Uzumaki later on. After he finished his business with Soichiro, of course. "You got her?" Saya asked with a look of worry as she watched Naruto pick up his mother and placing her on his back. Naruto, who grunted as he adjusted to the added weight on his back. "Yeah, I got her. Naruto said, as he felt his mother slap him on the back of his head. I'm not fat. I know what you're thinking, young man. Kushina slurred before she fell forward onto her son's shoulders. Kushina-chan, why did you drink the whole wine bottle? Yuriko said as felt a migraine coming, less than 5 minutes ago. Kushina decided for whatever reason, to chug a 33,000 yen bottle of wine. I'm not sorry. Kushina yelled out before placed her head down, and within a few seconds she began to snore. Naruto sighed. He bowed slightly to Yuriko and Saya. I'm really sorry for my Ka-san behavior, Oba-san. It's okay, Naruto-kun. Why don't you two take one of the guest rooms for the night? I highly doubt Kushina-chan will be driving anytime soon, Yuriko said as she motioned her daughter to go on ahead to make sure the room was unlocked before they arrived. You don't mind sharing one, right? It doesn't matter. Naruto shook his head. He didn't care either way. Although, he prefers his own room. He'd rather not leave his mother alone, drunk in a state. Still, is there any way to make it up to you? Naruto said as he started to walk down the hall, where Saya went, with Yuriko following at the same pace to talk with the blonde. Actually, why don't both Kushina and you come to a charity event I'm planning? So far it will only be a couple dozen people and of course, Saya and I will be attending, Yuriko said, as Naruto looked confused as he noticed a person missing. Thinking he misheard, he decided to ask. Isn't Soichiro going as well? Naruto asked. Yuriko sighed sadly, shaking her head no, as they began walking up the stair to the second floor. Soichiro won't be able to go, since he has business in Kyoto that week and he won't be back until the new year. That's why he was so late during dinner. Sure, I guess we can go, Naruto said, feeling bad for her and a little guilty for making her wait so long for everyone to arrive. Great, the event will be formal so you will have to wear a suit unfortunately. Yuriko stayed with a smile, happy that there will be more people that will be attending her event. So, what is the event for? Naruto asked Yuriko, who then began to explain what the event is for. As the two talked, they had soon arrived at the guest room. Opening the door for the two, Yuriko quickly moved inside to allow Naruto more room to enter. I got it from here, we'll talk later, good night. Naruto said. Yuriko replied back with a good night of her own and went off to her room to sleep, placing Kushina on the bed as gently as possible, causing her to groan in her sleep. As he started to remove his shoes, he heard a knock on the door. Did Oba-san forget to tell me something? Naruto said out loud, confused about the knock, opening the door a little to see who it was. What do you want? Naruto exclaimed with his eye narrowed slightly. Tetsudora visibly flinched. I'm sorry for disturbing both you and Kushina-san. Naruto as he started to glare at the man at the casual use of his mother-given name. Yeah, you are. What you want? Naruto asked him. Tetsudora couldn't help but feel intimidated by the young teen. How could he not notice the burning anger the blonde was sending his way? Was that a cold sweat dripping down his spine? I just never properly introduced myself. I'm Tetsudora didn't get to finish, as Naruto interrupted him. I know who you are, Soichiro talks a lot about you, Naruto said as he leaned against the door frame with his arms crossed. This guy didn't get the hint that he wasn't wanted. Maybe we got off the wrong foot. I'm sorry if I happened to anger you in any way. Tetsudora tried to reason with Naruto, but was interrupted again. No, I'm not angry, why would I be? You were just looking at my Ka-san like a horny mutt that hasn't had sex in years, Naruto said, as he left the room, making sure it was closed, as he stepped closer to the man. Tetsudora backed away, as he suddenly felt very nervous. He never thought that the blonde would act like this. Soon he felt his back hit the wall. Naruto quickly placed his right hand a nearby wall. Look, you're friends with Soichiro for years, so I'll give you one warning, stay away or else, Naruto said as he added a bit pressure to his hand, which soon broke through the wooden wall like it was made of tissue. Tetsudora seemed to have understood the message. Naruto pulled his hand out of the wall and went back to the room. Flexing his right hand and letting the bones crack, Naruto sighed as he noticed that he was losing some of his grip strength. He will need to get back to training. Looking up at the woman on the bed, as she lay comfortably underneath the bed cover, who seemed to have removed her shoes, jewelry and dress, all of which was all put away neatly. With a roll of his eyes, Naruto went to the other side of the bed and began to remove his clothes until he was in his boxers, preferring not to sleep in the uncomfortable clothes. Not caring where the pieces of cloth ended up, he flicked off the lights, before he slipped underneath the covers. As he places his head on the pillow, Kushina maneuvered over and began to hug her son, like a giant pillow. So how long were you awake? Naruto asked, as Kushina slowly lifted her head up, resting her chin on his chest. I have been awake the whole time, I just didn't want Yuriko-chan to yell at me again. Kushina spoke with a groan. She was still drunk. She wouldn't yell at you too much, he said, causing her to scoff in response. You don't know her like I do, Kushina stated, as he shrugged his shoulders as best as he could. Well, you're right about that, Naruto stated as he placed his arm over his eye. even though he knew Yuriko pretty much his whole life. The blonde didn't really know her, he had spent more time with Soichiro and Saya. Maybe the two should spend more time together, hell they could start at the charity event. Ka-san, why did you drink the whole wine bottle? Kushina looked ashamed, looking off to the side as she muttered, no reason. She felt her son's gaze on her and caved. I was upset. Upset? About what? Naruto asked, wondering why she was so upset. Until he remembered the conversation that was happening during that time. Is this about Siko? Seeing his mother turn his back towards him, he knew he hit the nail on the head. At the time, Saya asked if he was willing to go stargazing on the roof after dinner and possibly study together the next day. But he had to say no since he already made plans with Siko. That made the room to go silent, since they recognized that was a girl's name. Within a minute, Kushina was drunk and the conversation was forgotten by almost everyone. Why? Naruto had to ask. Kushina stayed quiet, refusing to talk. Until she felt her son wrap his arms around her. She felt herself blush in embarrassment, as she soon started to shake, trying to stop the tear that was pooling around her eyes from falling. You know, I hate it when you're like this. I'm scared that you'll leave me too, Kushina said as he struggled to contain her emotion, as she remembered the incident that took her husband's life. Minato shouldn't have died, he was covering for another person at the office he was working at. Late at night, he was called by Yuriko to tell him that she had gone into labor. Minato had quickly dropped everything he was doing and rushed to the hospital. But on his way there, a bus crashed into his car, killing him instantly. The day her husband died was the same day their son was born. And to make things worse, the man that Minato was covering for was actually going to a soap land with some of his friends, and had the guts to flirt with her at his funeral. She was glad that Soichiro had punched the man, breaking his jaw. The person was swiftly thrown out. But not before some of his employees had taken the man out back and gave him a beating for the dishonor he had shown to the recently deceased man, his widow and newborn child. The memories flashed in her mind. Naruto pulled her close to him in reassurance. I wish I could promise that I will never leave you, Naruto stated, trying to calm her down. But you know I can't, Naruto said. Kushina quickly began to wipe the tears in her eyes. If you want, I could cancel my plans for tomorrow. As he said those words, Kushina slapped him lightly on the arm. Don't, it would be rude to cancel. It's okay to go out with your friend. Don't worry about me, I'll just hang out Yuriko, Kushina said, while she still felt sad, knowing that this was the first time Naruto was asked to hang out with anyone. The redhead couldn't bear the thought of hurting her son. If that's what you want, then I'll still go, Naruto said before a thought ran through his mind. If you want, I don't mind waking up early to practice some Ijusta with you, he offered. Kushina gave him a small smile before turning her head to give him a peck on the cheek. I'll like that, prepare to get your ass whooped, Kushina said jokingly, before she places her head back on the pillow. Naruto-kun, is it okay with we stay like this? Naruto was silent for a moment, mostly because he knew how intimate the position they were in really was. The fact that the type of dress his mother was wearing earlier suggested she was wearing only a thong underneath the cover. But given her emotional state at the moment, he agreed with some hesitation. If that's what you want, then fine, Naruto stated. Kushina was one of the few good things left in his life. All he wanted was for her to be happy. The two closed their eyes before he muttered a single sentence that brought a smile to her face as the two cuddled. I love you, Ka-san. Time skipped by a lot. Naruto, are you ready yet? We need to hurry, you need to get to school early, remember? Kushina screamed, from the bottom of the stairs. She rushed to the hall mirror to check her reflection. Kushina was currently into her teacher's outfit, which consisted of a gray business suit, gray knee-length skirt, black loafers and white blouse. Damn, she looked good, Kushina thought to herself as she gave herself a little wink. Making sure her outfit was straight, hearing footsteps coming down the stairs. She turned to see her son dressed in his school uniform. Sorry, forgot that I have to wear this now, Naruto said as he gestured to his clothes. He was a black blazer, black pants, black loafers and a simple white long-sleeve shirt. The Fujimi Academy uniform looked good on him, Kushina thought with a bit reluctant. Walking up to him and straightened up his clothes a bit. Naruto groaned a little, but humored her. As she did this, the redhead couldn't help but appreciate her son's muscles. The training was doing him good. Naruto noticed her taking rather long time, fixing his clothes, coughing into his hand to get her attention. Ka-san, we should get going, Naruto spoke as she jumped with a blush. Was she just feeling up his muscles? Unable to think straight, she panicked. Oh right, come on then. Kushina quickly grabbed her purse off the living room table and quickly made their way into her car. As soon as the car drove off to Naruto's school, the two stayed quiet. After about 10 minutes, Kushina, unable to take the silence, started to talk. So, Naruto, how are you feeling? Kushina asked her son, who was simply looking out the window as he watched the landscape go by. Fine? What do you mean? Naruto said, still not paying attention. Not a lot of traffic at this time. Well, he shouldn't be surprised about that. It was 6:30. The majority of students are probably still sleeping or just leaving their homes. I mean, the fact that today is your first day as a high schooler, shouldn't you be more excited? Kushina explained, sure she still didn't like the idea of Naruto going to Fujimi. Couldn't he be more excited? This was a clean slate. A new start. Not really. I'm not expecting much, to be honest. Naruto said, as the car pulled over, putting the vehicle in park. She then turned towards him. Naruto-kun, please try not to get into too much trouble, okay? Kushina said in concern. Naruto looked away, a little annoyed about this conversation. Yeah, I'll try, Naruto said sarcastically with an eye roll, reaching her hand over to smack his head. Naruto barely flinched at the hit, while his mother held her hand from the small amount of pain. I mean it. Promise me that you won't get into any fights while you're at school. Kushina yelled. Staying silent, Naruto realized one important fact. He had neglected to tell his mother about his new job at the school. Oh well. Finally decided to speak. Kaa-san, you know I can't make that promise. After a brief pause, before continuing, you know how things are over there. If I don't get a bully attempt before the opening ceremony, I will be impressed. Ugh, fine, I'll take it. But at least make sure you don't hurt them too bad. She said with a grin, prodding her Naruto's shoulder, making her son chuckle at her remark. Now, that I can promise. Unless they piss me off, then all bets are off. Then they are red. The two shared a laugh before continuing on to his school. Turning on the radio for background noise, Naruto soon found them coming up to Fujimi. Kushina parked her car up in front of the school gate. He exited the car, just as his mother told him to stop. Taking out a camera, Naruto looked at it for a moment, realizing what she wanted. Really, Kaa-san? Naruto stated, as Kushina started to pout, at the disdained tone of his voice. Why not? No one's around and we have always done this. For your first day of elementary, junior, your first boxing match, even at your junior high graduation. You have no right to complain. The two stared at each other, refusing to budge, until like always the blonde gave in to his mother's demands. Fine, make it quick. You have to go to work too. Naruto yelled. Kushina placed the camera on the car, making sure everything was correct. Stepping next to Naruto, placing his arm around her shoulder, the two smiled at the camera. Soon the flash blinded them for a second. The redhead quickly grabbed the device and checked the photo, making sure it was to her liking. Staring at the photo, she couldn't help but notice that the two didn't really look like mother and son. Kushina didn't really mind that much, to be honest. Feeling her face redden a little, until she shook her head. Okay, honey, I should really be going, can't really be late to school, you know. Kushina said, giving her son a hug and a peck on the cheeks. Please be careful, call me if anything happens. Love you? Naruto waved goodbye, as he watched her drive off. Looking down at his simple flip phone, he noticed that he still had some time before he meet Akimoto. Walking through the school, he couldn't help being impressed by the size and appearance. The courtyard had a nice row of cherry blossom trees that were in bloom. And a sizable flower bed. They must have a gardener or a club take care of them. He noticed the school was divided into different sections. One section was the main building, that was used for class. A secondary building for what he guessed was for club activities. There was another section formed the outside, seems to be for gym and clubs related to sports. These buildings were connected to each other by bridges, 4 in total. Not far from the 3 connecting buildings, off to the side, was a rather long building, 3 floors each. There was an identical-looking building on the other side of the school, too. It must be the dorms for the students that lived too far from the school. Overall, the place had a rather clean look, fitting for a former prestigious school. Walking around, he began to notice some things that were off. The first was rather obvious. It was the large fence that covered the entire school ground. Not to mention a large sign saying no trespassers. But besides that, nothing. The school looked too clean in his opinion. What the hell is going on here? Naruto muttered to himself. He saw something move out of the corner of his eye. Looking back, he noticed an alleyway, just large enough for a person to squeeze through. Making sure that no one was around, he decided to walk down an alley. As the blonde squeezed though, he made note of some cigarette butts on the floor, broken glass. One thing that felt off was a couple of rocks. Normally it wouldn't be weird to see a couple rocks, but the same can't be said for 5 rocks and in a star pattern. That was weird. As he looked up, he saw something black on top what looks to be an air conditioner unit attached to the wall. Feeling curious, the blonde decided to climb up, grabbing it and pulled it down. It was a simple plastic black bag. Opening the bag, he saw was a couple packs of cigarettes, at least 10. Someone must have put it here to make sure it wasn't taken. The alley was rather out of the way from the main building, but not so far from the dorms for somebody to grab a quick drag. placing back where it was, he will come back for that later. Meanwhile, Akimoto was having to deal with one of the school board members who forced him an impromptu meeting with him. Who had the misfortune of dealing with this person for about 15 minutes, now. Atsushi-san, are you sure this brat could help? What the hell could some kid do, that we have tried to do for the past 7 years? The board member said, unconvinced about the man's methods. The school will be hearing a lot of complaints in the coming days for this. Hai-san, please calm yourself. We already discussed this in December. The board had agreed to my request to try this. If this works, Akimoto tried to motion the man to sit down and calm down. All he had done was yell and pace around the office. It won't work. How you managed to get the other board member to agree, I will never know. Hate screamed, slamming his hands on the headmaster's brand new desk. Hate glared at Akimoto, who tried to remain firm, not wanting to seem weak in front of him. Like I said, Hayate-san, if my method doesn't work, then I will resign my position as headmaster of the school. Akimoto said, completely confident in his decision, as the Hate growled, before he throws up his hand up in a frustration. Fine, do what you want. There's nothing you can do to salvage this situation. Besides, you will be gone both the year is done. Hate commented. As he left the room, Akimoto couldn't help but sigh in relief. That is when he heard a knock on his office door. Before groaning, thinking it was Hate, he said, "Come in." "Good morning, sensei. Sorry I'm late," Naruto said as he opened the door. The older man was relieved that it was actually Naruto, who was actually a rather easy person to deal with once you know how he ticks. Uzumaki-kun. "Why are you here?" Akimoto said with a surprised tone in his voice, causing the student to look at him with an eyebrow raised. "You asked me to come before school started, sensei. Did you forget?" The older male felt embarrassed that he ended up forgetting the detail. "Oh yes, right, sorry about that. I had some other things on my mind. Come in," Akimoto said, motioning him, and Naruto nodded as he made his way over to the chair in front of the desk. He couldn't help as his eyes wandered all over the place. None of the furniture was cheap. Whoever had this office had great taste, in his opinion at least. "This a nice-looking office, sensei. Definitely an improvement from your old one," Naruto commented, as the headmaster felt himself agreeing. It was quite well furnished and spacious compared to his old office, one of the perks of a high-level position. "Yes, it is. I haven't had time to decorate it to my liking yet. The majority of the things here are from the previous occupant of the office," Akimoto said, as he wanted to add a few pictures, his degrees, of course, the odd item here and there. He does plan on getting the walls repainted, maybe a nice crimson. "I just hope my office will look just as good," Naruto said, half jokingly and half seriously. Akimoto chuckled at him, began to speak. "The fact the board had allowed you to occupy a room for your use is amazing in itself," the headmaster commented. He had to really fight the board for a lot of the Uzumaki's request. "I'm not surprised, to be honest. They're pretty much desperate at this point." "Right," Naruto said, as he places his head on top of his right palm, as the other male agreed. "They are. At this point they're willing to try anything. The schools had already seen a drop in enrollment, and of course dropout rate had increased, within the last. If the school doesn't improve, they will lose their jobs and most importantly paycheck," Akimoto said, as he reached into one of his desk drawers, pulling out a red piece of cloth. "So Uzumaki-kun are ready to accept the responsibility of making this school a better place for the students?" It was the disciplinary committee's armband. "Do you really have to be so dramatic?" Naruto asked as he snatched the red armband. "I accept the responsibility." Letting his finger run through the material, he couldn't help but feel satisfied. "Sorry, couldn't help myself, but allow me to explain what you will have to be doing throughout the year as the head of the disciplinary committee," Akimoto said, as Naruto began to dread his decision, as he heard the dread word that will be known as paperwork. After about 2 hours, Naruto had left the headmaster's office to head to the shoebox area of the school, to see where his homeroom was. As the blonde arrived, he noticed a large group of students had already started crowding the board that held the homeroom assignments. Groaning to himself, knowing that it would be a while before he could see where his homeroom is. Feeling a tap on his shoulder, he turned around to his best friend. "Siko? What are you doing here? I thought that you decided to go," Naruto started, before Siko giggled at her best friend's face. He was genuinely surprised to see her in Fujimi. Siko was currently wearing the girl version of the Fujimi school uniform, which consisted of white sailor top with green collar, black ribbon, black shoes with matching socks. But what stood out the most was her green skirt that was longer than the majority of the other skirts he girls were wearing. "I wanted to surprise you. I believe that it was worth it just to see your expression," Siko said as she laughed. It was so worth keeping her decision to follow him here a secret. "Is that way? You refused to answer me every time I asked you what school you were going to?" Naruto asked, annoyed that Siko had kept this from him. While, internally, he was relieved to have Siko here with him, he just wished she had told him. "Yep, oh by the way, you're in 1C. Siko said as she motioned to the board. Naruto looked over to the paper that had 1C printed on it with black bold letters. Scanning the contents, he did end up seeing that his name was indeed there. He also saw that Siko wasn't in the paper for said class. Unfortunately, I was placed in 1A, the purple-haired girl said with sadness evident in her voice. Siko hated the fact that she wasn't going to be in the same class as her best friend. The purple-haired girl had heard some rumors that the place you base on your test scores. Maybe if she tried to score a little less, then the two could have been in the same class. Don't worry about it, Siko, Naruto said, as she looked at him confused. We can't change what happened. Just because we are not in the same class doesn't mean we won't still hang out. Siko gently smiled at him. He was right. Why bother worrying about the past? The two walk off talking. They still had a small amount of time before they had to go their class. The two decided to go over their plans they had for that weekend. After they left, an orange-haired girl had walked up to the board to see where her name was. Let's see Miyamoto O, Class 1C, Rei said, as she to walk around the halls to get used to her new surroundings before class started. Homeroom. Hello everyone, welcome to 1C. My name Hayashi Kyoko. I will be your homeroom teacher and English teacher for the year. Kyoko spoke to the class. She couldn't help noticing some whispers emerge from around the room. Man, look at her tits, they're huge. How the hell did she get the do big? Wonder how much they cost. Did she drink a gallon of milk a day to get them? Too bad she on the bad side of 20, nobody wants a Christmas cake. Are you kidding me? Look at her, don't lie and say you wouldn't hit that. Kyoko silently sighed to herself. It wasn't anything new, she had always heard this type of thing since she started working here. She couldn't help but be pissed and sad at the fact she was mentioned to be a Christmas cake. Sure, she was single and 26 years old. She still looked great, an hourglass figure, large breast as pointed out by one of her students. Her ass wasn't the best, it was still decent size and shape in her opinion. She was considered to be the hottest woman at the school before the new nurse had started to work here this year. The one thing I will not tolerate is talking in class, Kyoko yelled, causing the students to fall silent, glancing around the room eyeing a few key students. A male in the back, by the door, openly leered at the female student next to him. A girl who was texting at the center of the class. Of course, the blonde-haired student by the window in the third row, next to the orange-haired girl. She will have to talk to the two separately. Kyoko had no idea if they knew each other, to get them to dye their hair back to the natural colors. The school has been already under a lot of pressure, she didn't need her students to add to the problem. Especially the blonde-haired man, she had a feeling he will cause her some problem, better to nip it in the bud fast. Now then, I have a few rules. The first, no texting. The girl in the center jumped slightly, knowing the teacher had meant her. Silently placed her phone down as the teacher glared at her. No harassing your fellow classmates. The male in the back gulped a bit as he tried to sink into his seat. And lastly, follow the school dress code, Kyoko said, as she glared at the blonde and the orange-haired student. She noted only the orange-haired girl flinched, the blonde just stared impassively back at her. So long as you don't disrupt the class or do anything to damage the school reputation, then you will find nothing to be worried about, Kyoko said, as she removed her eyes from the blonde to address her class. You will have the next few minutes to talk to your classmates until the opening ceremony begins. I will come back to escort you to the auditorium when it's time. Until then, you are free to do anything as long as you don't leave the room. Kyoko grabbed her attendance book and left the class. Soon the class erupted with noise from the students. Naruto groaned at the increased noise volume, instead kept his mouth shut. He will ruin their lives later. Man, what a... She needs to get laid big time. We will have to deal with her for the rest of the year. God kill me now. It probably won't be that bad. Can you believe that Yankee didn't even flinch when she started to yell at him? How the hell did he get in here anyways? Maybe he paid the headmaster off to get in. He's kind of scary, and what's with the whisker tattoos? I don't know, he's kind of cute, well, for a delinquent. I wonder if they both dyed their hair together? Yeah, just like in junior high, Naruto thought as he tried to ignore the class conversation. Based on past experience, he had a feeling that Kyoko will be on his case for a long time. She already had judged him because of his hair, silently wondering if she will call his mother to force him to dye his hair back to a natural color. What bullshit. Although he will love to hear the phone conversation. Hey! Naruto turned his head to his right to the seat next to him, glancing at the orange-haired girl, who also got yelled at with him. I guess we will be sitting next to each other for the rest of this year, huh? The girl said nervously as she scratched her cheek. She felt the guy's blue eyes unsettling, but decided to keep talking. Hayashi-sensei is rather uptight, don't you think? Naruto didn't talk, but was staring at one thing, her orange hair. You have nice hair, Naruto said as the girl blushed, not expecting the blonde to say something so abruptly. Twisting a strand of hair, thinking about what to say next. She might as well just say a thank you for the compliment. Thank you? So my name's Miyamoto Rei, what's yours? Rei asked, hoping to make an acquaintance out of the blonde. Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meet you. Naruto bowed his head politely, at Rei who bowed back. So far so good Rei, don't up. Uzumaki-san, what junior high school did you go to? I went to. Before Rei could say what school she went to, the speaker turned on, as everybody's attention soon focused on them. Attention, may all students and staff members, please proceed to the auditorium for the opening ceremony. Kyoko then walked back into the classroom. You heard the announcement, follow me. Everyone then started to exit the room, but as Naruto walked by the door, he heard the teacher call out to him. Uzumaki-san, I will need to have a word with you after the opening ceremony about your attire. Kyoko tried to sound intimidating, as she walked off with a glare before to get in front of her students. Hearing the slight muffled laughter of his peers, caused him to groan internally. Soon. Uzumaki-san, are you okay? Rei said as she watched the homeroom teacher walk away. Rei could already tell that their teacher had it in for the male. Naruto simply shrugged shoulders as he walked behind the class to avoid drawing any attention, for now. It's a little rude of her to judge you like that. I mean, that is your natural hair color, right? Rei asked, unsure of if the blonde male was, well, a natural blonde. She had seen and knew people with odd natural colored hair. She remembered that her childhood friends, Takashi, being close to a girl that had pink hair. She felt her heart skip a beat as she thought about Takashi. The two had made a silly promise, to get married when they were older. It wasn't likely to happen, but she did hold on to the bit of hope that he will fulfill that promise. The Orange Jet had harbored a crush on him before the promise was even made. It sucked that she was slightly older than him, just enough to be a school year ahead of him. Maybe that's why she was trying to make friends with the blonde, to get her mind off her childhood friend. It is, Miyamoto-san, Naruto said as he continued to walk with Rei behind him. Rei's focus was back to her companion, soon found herself walking beside him in silence after a minute or so, as her class arrived at the auditorium. Scanning the crowd that had already gathered inside, she could recognize some familiar faces in the crowd. Rei wondered if she was allowed to talk to them. Seeing her stare at her friends, Naruto had tapped her on her arm. Turning towards him in confusion, wondering what he wanted. You can go if you want, Naruto said, as he jabbed his head in the direction that she was looking at. Rei's eyes widened a bit in surprise. Really? Are you sure it's allowed? Rei asked, not wanting to get into more trouble with her homeroom teacher than she was already in it. Don't worry about it, besides it looks like everyone has already left. The moment Rei heard those words, she looked around to confirm, the two were the only ones still together. Their classmates had already blended into the crowd of people. Rei felt hesitant, even though Naruto said it was okay for her to go with her friends, she didn't want to leave him alone. Just go, I have something to do, Naruto said as walking off into the crowd. Rei stayed in place as she watched Naruto walk off into the crowd. Once he was out of sight, she decided to just go to her group of friends. As she got reacquainted with her friends, the room lights dimmed as a teacher took the stage and addressed the crowd of teachers and students. Hello, everyone, I hope everyone is having a good morning. A older woman spoke to the crowd of both students and staff members. As she talked to the crowd, Kyoko, who was standing next to right side of the room, tried keeping her eye on her students. This will be in vain since they were all over the place. Glancing the crowd, the female teacher could tell they weren't paying the lady on the podium any attention, just quietly whispering amongst themselves. She had even lost her eye on who she assumed to be the biggest troublemaker in her class. This was the worst. Hayashi-sensei, you seem a bit wound up, is everything alright? Standing right next to her was one of her coworkers, Teshima asked. Kyoko openly sighed, shaking her head no, showing that something was wrong. One of my students isn't here anymore, Kyoko said, trying to find, in her mind, the biggest troublemaker of her class. Are you sure? None of the students are allowed to leave the auditorium until this is over, Teshima said as he gave a look to another teacher that was standing next to him. What does he look like, Hayashi-sensei? He's about 5 feet 6 inches, blonde dyed hair, blue eyes, and what appears to be a set of tattoos or scars on his cheeks in the shape of whiskers, Kyoko said. Teshima gave her a weird look, clicking his tongue. Yup, sounded like a outlandish brat to him. Sounds like a big troublemaker to me. Why in the hell do we allow those kinds of students into this school? Motioning for the teacher next to him to go to look on the other side of the room, hoping to find the student there. This school is going downhill. It's a shame that you came just as it started, Teshima said, saddened at the current status of the school. He had spent the last decade degrade in such a way. Kyoko agreed. She had started to work. The school still had a semblance to its old glory. Now, the school she has been with for the last 6 years was on its last legs. What can we do? I just hope the new headmaster could help in some way, the female teacher said. Teshima agreed. He had the pleasure in talking to his new boss just 20 minutes before. He seemed to be a great guy, but Teshima could tell he wouldn't make much a difference. He was too soft. I highly doubt it, but enough about this stuff, why don't we go get a drink later with some of the other teachers? Teshima offered. Kyoko quickly agreed she could use a drink after today. After all, it's just going to get harder from here on out. Now allow me to introduce the new headmaster of Fujimi Academy. Akamoto Atushi. The female teacher said as the room erupted in a polite clap, as Akamoto walked on stage and up to the podium. Thank you for the kind introduction. As you are all aware of, your previous headmaster had decided to have an early retirement. We have also decided to hire a new nurse, as well, Murakawa Shizuka. Gesturing to the woman with blonde hair that was standing near the front of the room. She was currently wearing a white blouse, black skirt, and giant breast. Said person bowed with a smile, as he jiggled from the sudden motion as both male and female focused their gaze in them. Soon the male population gave her thunderous applause. Shizuka was taken back by the applause, simply bowed in response, causing some wolf whistle and cheers to echo around the room. Kyoko had crossed her arms over her chest in jealousy. Noticing that Teshima was staring directly at the nurse's tits, she stepped on his foot. The man groaned in pain as he tried to keep a straight face as possible. He should be thankful that she didn't aim at his crotch. I'm sure you are already aware of the problems this school is having at the moment, Akamoto said, as the teachers and students sans, the first years, knew exactly what he was talking about. Starting from today forward, the disciplinary committee will be given more jurisdiction over the school, and will be allowed to punish students without the consent of the teachers. As he said this, the room erupted as people began to talk with their neighbors. Even the teacher looked shocked. He can't be serious, allowing students to punish their fellow classmates, Kyoko said, unable to fathom the idea. Teshima and the rest of the staff agreed. Shizuka looked confused at why everyone was acting this way, but just shrugged it off and focused back on the person speaking. To help with this, I had asked a specific student to become the head of this committee, Akamoto said as some second and third students started to look towards a certain girl in the crowd. This girl was a third year and was supposed to be the next head of the committee, but she looked just as shocked as everyone else. He was obviously not talking about her. Now let me introduce the head of the disciplinary committee, Uzumaki Naruto, Akamoto said, as some people gasped in shock, while the rest whispered amongst them. In the crowd, Siko smiled, so that's why he joined this school. Naruto-kun, you really are something, Siko thought, as she watched her best friend walk out on stage. Meanwhile, at another part of the room, Rei and Kyoko stared with widened eyes and jaw dropped. Hayashi-sensei, isn't that the student that you were talking about? Teshima commented, crossing his arms in front of his chest. Kyoko was still unable to process what was happening. All she could do was silently watch this unfold. Naruto bowed slightly to Akamoto, who moved to the side to allow Naruto access to the podium. As he stepped up, he placed his hands down on the sides on the podium. He kept quiet, as the room was still buzzing with noise. He heard someone shout, "What the hell is that Yankee doing here?" Smirking to himself. That's a good question, why the hell I'm here, Naruto said with narrowed eyes as the room went silent as he began to speak. Siko felt her grin widen even more. Oh, this was going to be interesting. Well, can blame your incompetent teachers for that. In fact, if it wasn't for them, the school board wouldn't have invited me. That's right, they asked me to join. Mostly because of a problem that they have been having right here at this fine institution of ours. The obvious sarcasm in his voice. This was so bad that they wanted someone to come and clean up this problem, right up. I know some of you people are intellectually challenged and can't comprehend such a difficult question, so let me answer it for you. Naruto paused in his speech as his eyes meet both Siko's, she the look of approval on her face. Back on stage, Naruto, regaining his thoughts. I couldn't give a what you think of me. I am here to do my job and to do what is expected of me. I'm here to get results, that quite frankly was not up to standard. Oh, and don't worry, as long as you A. follow the rule or B. piss me off. Then we won't have a problem. If we do have a problem, then you'll find out just how good of a cleaner I really am. Now get back to class. Naruto walked off the stage as he finished speaking. The school population kept quiet, except for Akamoto, who was the only person clapping. The underlying message was received, but the message will be unheard by the portion that didn't believe in the blonde's threat. The Fujimi students started to slowly file out of the building to get back to their classrooms. In the audience, Rei was unsure how to feel. While awestruck at his actions, she couldn't help but feel frightened of him. During this, some teachers had decided to go and meet the new headmaster, wanting to know what the hell is going on. Naruto's first year in Fujimi had just started with a bang. Chapter 3, The First Day. Right after the opening ceremony. Well, I think that went great, personally, Naruto said as both he and Akamoto entered the headmaster's office before the two sat down. Plopping his feet on top of the older man's desk, Akamoto just shook his head as he stared at Naruto's feet. Taking the hint, he placed them back on the floor. Yes, I have a feeling that you will have your work cut out for you, Akamoto said, as Naruto simply shrugged his shoulders. While the majority of the student body will take your words seriously, the other students won't. And that's when I will force them to listen, Naruto stated with a small smirk on his face. The headmaster couldn't help but shake his head in amusement. Of course, I don't think I have informed you of this. But in recent years, there's a recent tradition that the current groups of students that will skip the first day of school, Akamoto stated as Naruto interrupted the man with a question. So, do these students? Naruto was then interrupted in turn. As a loud knock on the door was heard, the two looked at each other knowing what's to come. Akamoto exclaimed for the person behind the door to enter. Soon, a group of about 6 teachers all flooded the office. Naruto just raised an eyebrow as he noticed that his teacher was up front. Not looking all that pleased with the looks of this. I'm sorry, but I was having a private discussion with the head, Naruto said as Teshima came up with a small glare aimed at him before switching his attention to Akamoto. While I'm intruding at Sushi-san. But the teachers are all concerned with what was just said at the opening ceremony. Teshima spoke as Naruto looked at Akamoto, who just sighed. He knew this was going to happen, but at least he was able to prepare for this. Yes, what concerns will that be? Akamoto asked the teacher with false interest. Teshima immediately looked at Naruto, who stared back with a straight face. Well, the staff has concerns with the fact that you have given a problematic student free reign over the entire school, Teshima stated his stance as Kyoko stepped up to take over the talks, clearing her throat as she began to speak. It's haven't been a single day, but I have already had problems with Uzumaki-san. Not only did break the student dress code and complete disregard for authority, Kyoko said before directing her attention to her student. In a matter of fact, Uzumaki-san, I have to ask that you dye your hair back to its original color. I will not have a tarnished Fujimi reputation any further than it already fallen? Naruto said for the first time since the group entered the room. On the subject of my hair color, I assure you that this is my natural hair color. If you want I can prove it, but I'd rather not expose myself to the male teachers. This will be proven when we take physical examination next week. Some of the teachers began to glare back at the blonde for his rudeness. Akamoto sighed before he decided to intervene. Uzumaki-kun, please stop talking, Akamoto said, directing the attention back to him. Hayashi-sensei, I can assure you that Uzumaki-kun's hair is natural. I believe that he had inherited his father's looks if I remember correctly. Stopping for a moment to get a confirmation from the student, who nodded his head yes. As for the fact of being a problematic student, well, I can only say that I haven't received complaints of him being a troublemaker. In fact, trouble seems to find him if anything. As for his attitude towards you and the other staff member, well, there's nothing I can do about that. The teachers didn't seem impressed by what the man was saying and the room erupted as all the teachers started to try to yell over each other until Naruto stood up. All eyes were on him, crossing his arms in front of his chest. Oh, are you guys done? If you're not, I can wait. If you can keep this up for about 1 more hour, then I can go home after this. Naruto stated since today was indeed a half day. Since the students were allowed time to explore, look at the clubs the school has to offer and get used their surroundings. Okay, good, glad we are all finished. You know there is an old saying, it's better to keep your mouth shut and let people think you are stupid than to open it and prove them right, so just waltz into your boss's office to complain that I was given control of how to discipline the student body. Why? Naruto questioned to the group of teachers, who all thought the same thing, but before anyone could say it, Naruto began to speak again. Don't even say it, I know what you're going to say. It's because of my hair, the color of my skin, the fact I have whiskers, that I was born, on my cheeks. The things that are out of my control? You have the gall to assume who I am before you even talk to me. I think you lot of fools. You blame me for that, then fine, I have been hearing this sort of shit my entire life and I am not tired of it yet. I have called a lot worse by a lot of people, Naruto said, as he finally took a step forward. Akamoto-sensei and the school board of directors have brought me here to do something about the delinquents. If there is anyone to blame, then I blame you, Naruto stated as he gestured towards the teachers, which brought on glare and shouts from them as he just continued. I'm here because you guys failed in keeping your students in line. I'm here because you guys couldn't do your job. Teshima had enough of the blonde's talk, as soon he grabbed Naruto by his shirt and tried lifting him up in the air in an effort to intimidate him. The old man soon found that he couldn't make the blonde budge an inch, only causing his blazer to fall to the floor. Anger was visibly written all over his face. Kyoko and Akamoto were shocked at the male teacher's response. Kyoko wanted to scream at Teshima to let him go since he still was her student. Oh, you're mad? Go ahead, hit me, I don't care. It wouldn't even hurt, to be honest, you will just end up losing your job for assaulting a student is all. Naruto spoke, reached up grabbing the male teacher's arm, forced it off of him before straightening his clothes, grabbing his blazer from the floor before placing it over his shoulders. I'm sorry for the commotion, Akamoto-sensei. I will come back tomorrow to continue about what we're talking about before. Naruto bowed, turning around to walk out the office. As he did this, he quickly addressed Kyoko as he walked by. I'll see you tomorrow, Hayashi-sensei. With that, Naruto left the room. Akimoto sighed as he felt a headache coming. He returned to his desk. Watching the other teacher, he could tell that they were not in the right state of mind. I think it's best if we left it here for today. I will be willing to hear your complaints one at a time, at a later date. They seemed to have agreed with the headmaster, and soon began to file out, Teshima grumbling under his breath. He did note that Kyoko was in deep thought about something. God, he needed a drink. Can you believe what that brat said? Not only Teshima ranted to the other teachers as they walked through the school halls to get back to the faculty office. Most of the teachers half-heartedly listened to the PE teacher, some agreeing with what he was saying. As for the rest, they didn't voice their thoughts, thinking this was a flash in the pan. Except for one, Kyoko was contemplating back on her student's word. Right, Hayashi-sensei? Teshima asked Kyoko, who was jolted from her train thought, looking at the group of eyes in confusion before asking them what they were talking. We were talking about that troublesome brat of yours. You have your work cut out for you, Hayashi-sensei. The group of teachers was led by Teshima, who continued the conversation, as Kyoko kept to herself the whole time. Naruto was currently wandering through the school halls getting himself acquainted with his new surroundings. He has been walking around the school for about 15 minutes. Looking into the rooms he passes by as he did, but one thing currently bugged him at the moment. Did I just get into a fight with a teacher? Wait, does he even count as one? Ka-san will be pissed if she found out, Naruto mumbled to himself, as he rubbed the back of his neck due to stress. Soon a familiar noise reached his ears. Placing a hand on his stomach, he realized that we didn't eat anything all day. You know, talking to yourself is a sign of a person's mental state deteriorating? Siko said as suddenly she popped up from around the corner to appear in front of her best friend. With a slightly widened eye, he wanted to ask her why she was here, but was beaten to the punch. Naruto-kun, you do know that we still have class today? And it's only 9:22, right? Siko spoke with a slight grin. Naruto reached into his pocket, fishing out his phone to check the time. She was right. Well, that is a surprise. I guess I had a lot of things on my mind. I didn't realize it was still this early. Naruto sighed as he places his phone back into his pocket. Here he was hoping that it was at least lunchtime. His eye narrowed before he stared at the purple-haired girl with his arms crossed, who looked confused at his action. Siko, why are you out of class? It's not like you to skip, especially on the first day at a new school. Naruto said, wanting to know why Siko wasn't in class. He might be her friend, but he still was a disciplinary member. He still had a job to do. My teacher wasn't in class, so we're told that it would be a free period. Besides, I wanted to use this chance to look around a bit, and I was happily surprised to see my best friend walking the halls. Siko said, walking towards him as she continued to talk. Although, I didn't expect to see you holding a conversation with yourself. If I'm to be completely honest, something on your mind? Siko finished as leaned forward a bit curious about his response. Feeling that his personal space was being invaded by the swordswoman, again. Just allowing Siko to do as she pleased, Naruto just decides to keep walking. The soul woman in the hall soon began to follow him. So something the matter? To be honest with you, you look exhausted. Siko asked. She already knew the answer. After knowing him for just a few months, she had already had a grasp of his habits. At the moment, male eyes have slightly gazed over, the head was slightly tilted forward as if he was going to fall asleep as he walked. Yes, I had to wake up earlier than I'm used to and having to deal with the teachers. Just a couple of moments ago didn't help either, Naruto said as he admitted to a bit tired. Maybe he should take a visit to the nurse's office. Honestly, I think I'm going to take a nap until lunch. I don't feel like dealing with my class or teacher at the moment. The two went up a flight of stairs. Naruto stopped in his step. Looking at the corner of his eye, he saw a trio of male students walking by. Those things were huge. One of the males said, as his friends both nodded their heads in agreement. I hear you, man. Do you think those things were bigger than my head? The male left asked, as he cupped his hands to his chest to show what he meant. Siko and Naruto exchanged glances, as the last of the male began to talk. I'm pretty sure they are hee. I know what I'm doing later. Soon the group moved out of sight as they kept their talks going. Siko and Naruto walked the halls. The two felt slight disgust from overhearing the conversation just a moment ago. So looks like you will be meeting the new nurse for something other than a headache, Siko commented, as Naruto just sighed as he left to go to the nurse's office. Soon, the blonde found himself in front of the infirmary. Knocking on the door, he soon heard a loud crash and from behind the doors. Naruto reluctantly reached for the door handle and opened it to find a woman in a lab coat, face planted to the ground and her ass in the air, a box on the side with its contents spilled. Naruto couldn't help but have a dumbfounded look on his face. The woman groaned as she sat back up. Realizing that someone was in the room with her, she turned to see who it was with a slightly dazed look on her face. taking a closer look at this rather tall woman who had some ridiculous curves on her. Her physique is most pronounced by her humongous breasts. She has long blonde hair that extends down past her waist and hazel eyes. Several bangs of her hair hanging down into her face, with 2 bangs come down at the sides running all the way down while also framing her face. She was currently wearing a white dress shirt and black skirt with a matching set of heels. "Oh, hello, nice to meet you," Shizuka said, as she quickly stood up to bow to the young man, who bowed in return. Shizuka smiled at the blonde with a look of excitement. After all, this was her first patient, so to speak. "I'm sorry, but I hadn't had time to organize the office yet. So it's still a bit messy." "No, it's okay." Naruto paused slightly as he forgot what he was there for. Shizuka's eyes widened as she soon recognized who he was. "Oh, you're Uzumaki-kun, right?" Shizuka said, soon trespassing into his personal space. Naruto nodded his head slowly as he felt put off by this woman. She was odd. "I remember you, when you made your speech to the school." Shizuka placed her hand on her cheek, thinking back on the speech. While she hadn't understood a chunk of the student's speech, she recognized that he was invited to make sure that the school was functioning properly. While she didn't know how he will do it, the nurse had a funny feeling that he could do it. Funny feeling. Excuse me, sorry, but I don't know your name." Naruto wondered what the nurse's name was. Shizuka giggled softly before she told the blonde her name. "Marikawa-sensei, I didn't get a lot of sleep. I was wondering if you could let me rest here for a bit." Shizuka bit her lip lightly as she eyed the curtain that had 2 beds behind them, not to mention a bunch of boxes on top. She was in a bit of a bind here. Naruto seized the hesitation in her eyes, started to walk the curtains. Before the female teacher could stop him, he pulled them open to see stacks of boxes behind them. Certainly, the beds must have to be beneath them. Looking back at Shizuka, who started to twiddle with her thumbs in embarrassment. "Sorry," Shizuka mumbled softly, as Naruto silently let out a groan. Staring at the boxes, he couldn't help but notice the thin layer of dust on them. He should have just gone to the roof. The roof. "So you're telling me that you just spent over an hour helping the Murakawa-sensei cleaning and organizing her office? Just so you can sleep for 40 minutes? Siko said with a hint of pity towards the sleepy blonde, who was laying on his back, basking in the sun rays. "Did he fall asleep?" Naruto just groaned again, as the two were now seated on the rooftop of the school building. Siko was currently picking at her bento. This held simple rice and baked chicken that she made for the two. Eyeing Naruto's uneaten bento, she asked if he wasn't hungry. Naruto sat up, grabbing his lunch, and began to eat its content. "Personally, I thought your speech was great," Siko spoke as she placed a piece of chicken in her mouth. She swallowed it. She felt that it was a little dry. Still, it was better than her last attempt at cooking chicken a few weeks ago. "Well, not everyone thought so, it seems," the blonde had commented with a simple shrug of his shoulders, not really caring at this point about the commotion he had caused. If he managed to scare a couple of people and prevent them from misbehaving in school, then less work for him in the long run. "You should have seen some of our old classmates when they saw you up on stage, making your speech. It was hilarious, to be honest." Siko giggled as she thought back on the students' body and staff faces, as Naruto just rolled his eyes. What was she, a sadist? Don't ever change, Siko, Naruto thought. Regardless of how weird Siko could or would act, he will freely admit that he enjoys her company. In just half a year she managed to worm her way into his heart. He hoped they could enjoy this for a long time to come. The two ate in silence as they simply enjoyed each other's company. This stayed for about 8 minutes before the duo's ears picked up the sound of the rooftop doors opening. They were not able to see who it was due to their positions. They were out of view of the door, and vice versa. "Man, I'm telling you, that girl with pink hair that's in my class is a total slut," a male voice stated as the sounds of footsteps reached his ear, looking at Siko, who looked confused as he did. Yeah, you always say that. Every time you talk to those sluts you always get kicked in the besides, the majority of those sluts isn't even in school today. You should know that it's a tradition for us to skip the first day school." Another male with a gruff voice answered back. Soon another male started talking. "Man, the only reason we're here at school is that we have Shido as our homeroom teacher. God, that man gives me the creeps. The others are so lucky." The others seemed to agree as they voiced their displeasure of the man. Naruto raised an eyebrow but kept listening. This was getting interesting. "Man, I need a smoke. Where did Ali hide the bag?" the male asked. Naruto's mouth soon started to form into a grin. Looks like he should start working. Siko saw Naruto stand up and start making his way toward the sounds of the boys talking. Looks like she's going to get a free show to go with her lunch. "Pass me one while you're at it." Teshima was pissed when he came in earlier to class. "I swear he was about to punch me when I asked if he got rejected by Hayashi again." Naruto soon found a small group of 3 male students all huddled around the corner of the roof, each one holding a cigarette. They looked like stereotypical delinquents with dyed hair, white wife beater underneath the school blazer, pants slacking down. One of them even had a pompadour hairstyle. Huh? Who that? A member of the group asked as he looked towards Naruto with a curious look on his face. The other turned to see who he was talking about. I don't remember seeing him around before, must be one of the new first years. This time the person with the slicked black hair said, before taking a drag of his cigarette. He soon started to walk towards Naruto, who remained unflinching as the older male stopped in front of him. Hey, the first year I suggest you leave, this isn't the kind of place for kids to be around. Although with your hair, you might fit right in with us misfits. The same male who noticed Naruto a few seconds ago exclaimed. Naruto grinned. They weren't wrong about that statement. Why grinning bout, kid? I tell you what, if you go down to the school store and buy me and my friends some yakisoba bread and some strawberry milk, then we will forget about what just the student with the pompadour hair said before Naruto interrupted him by asking him a question. Where did you get the cigarettes? I'm pretty sure you guys aren't old enough to buy them yet. I might be wrong cause you might have been held back a few years, then it's my fault for that, but it's still against the rules to smoke on school grounds. Naruto stated as the trio started to get agitated by what he just said. So? We tried being nice here, kid. We were even considering allowing you to hang out with our group. Now you're pissing me off. I tell you what, if you do some jumping jacks and get us what we want from the school store, then we won't have to teach you a lesson. The pompadour-haired student said as the small group started to crowd around Naruto. Oh, are you threatening me? Naruto said, as he soon realized that he forgot something, reaching into his pocket to fish out. Well, I guess I should start doing my job then. Duties? One of the males said as the rest looked confused as well. Hey, doesn't he look familiar as well? You won't have to worry about that, Naruto said as he slid his armband up. The man with the pompadour hair recognized it as the disciplinary committee armband. Oh, look, a new member of the disciplinary committee. What you are going to do, write us up? The trio lets out a hearty laugh and Naruto made sure that his armband wouldn't fall. Looked towards the laughing trio, and with a grin, he waited for them to finish. Are you done? Naruto asked after a minute before the pompadour student wiped away the tears in his eyes from laughing too hard. Okay, kid, I will do you a favor. The pompadour student took off his blazer, handing it to his friend. Sticking out his chin for an easy strike as he exclaimed, I will even let you take the first hit. Seeing the dried look that was on younger blonde's face. No, I'm serious, going on. It's the least I can do for my kohai. Think of it as a gift from your senpai. This guy was a complete idiot. First for underestimating him, two for allowing a free hit on him with his chin out. If Naruto wanted, he could knock these guys out with a single punch. But he was a good guy, he won't take the easy way out. What are you waiting for? The pompadour soon felt the air leave his lungs as Naruto landed a hard right punch into his sternum. Grabbing his chest in pain, the man leaned forward unconsciously. Before he could recover, Naruto brought his left fist to uppercut him in the face. As he moved back, Naruto jumped up, grabbing his head, holding it in place and kneed him. Just as he staggered a bit, he turned to look at Naruto, who was already in motion to deliver a spinning kick. When it connected, the pompadour student was soon falling to the ground unconscious. What? What the? The slicked back male stuttered for a bit as he just watched his friend get ate up by a random first year. Naruto turned towards him and his friend and said one word. Next. When he said this, Siko, who was currently watching on from a good distance away, as a slight shiver ran through her body. Feeling the heat on her face, she couldn't help but enjoy the watching her best friend fight. She wondered if he would be okay with her watching him fight more. Although, she did wonder why her heart seemed to have skipped a beat when she thought about Naruto. Soon the doors to the roof burst open, as a girl's voice rang out through the roof. What the hell is going on here? Headmaster, I demand that this delinquent be expelled immediately. Naruto was currently back at Akimoto's office for the third time today, this time not by his own will. He was forced to come because this girl wouldn't leave him alone. This girl happened to be a third year and a member of his committee senpai. Looking at her, she was a rather tall girl, slightly tan skin, 5 feet 6 inches, black hair and a ponytail, and had a pair of reading glasses on. She seemed to be stereotypical strict student council president instead of a disciplinary committee member. Actually, she could also fit into that stereotype as well. Sir, not only did I catch this man fighting with 3 students, injuring them in the process, and then Naruto soon tuned her out as she began to go into detail on his misadventure. By the looks of it, Akimoto had tuned her out as well. Who then stared at Naruto, with a look in his eye that said really. In response, Naruto just shrugged as if to say, what can you do? Yuna-chan, please, we have already discussed this issue earlier. Akimoto was unable to finish his sentence before Yuna slammed her hands down on his desk. We haven't discussed anything. Yuna glared at the headmaster in rage. This made Naruto curious. Mostly because he had no clue who this girl, Yuna, was. Oh, Akimoto-sensei, Naruto called as the two looked at him. Can I go? Lunch is already over, and I have to go write up the report for what just happened on the roof, as well. Yuna glared at him as Akamoto sighed. Don't you dare, Yuna exclaimed before she was interrupted by Akamoto. Of course, Naruto-kun, you may leave. I will take care of things over here. I do request that your report is on my desk first thing in the morning though. Akamoto said. Naruto gave a small bow before he turned and left the room. He was going to go take a nap in the infirmary. When Naruto left, Akamoto turned to stare at the female student who was glaring at the door. Yuna-chan, Akamoto started as he drew the attention of the girl. I know that you're upset. Upset? I'm then upset. I'm livid. Yuna screamed at the headmaster as he places his hands in front of his face as he stared at her. First, I found out that there was a new member of the disciplinary committee that I never approved of. Second, I find out that he was a no-good delinquent. Half a day into his admission, I find him beating up 3 students. While they might have been delinquents themselves, not to mention breaking major school's rules, they still have a right to. Akamoto stayed silent as he listens to the young girl's rant. The headmaster already knew why the young girl was mad, besides the fact that Naruto had broken, in her eyes, the school rules. If it was any other person, it would be considered a violation of the rules. But due to the unique circumstance around Naruto's position, the same rules don't apply to him to a certain extent. Not only did I found out the position as the leader of the committee that I have been a part of for the last 2 years, was given to the first year who not only Yuna said before Akamoto held his hand stopping the girl from speaking any further. Yuna-chan, you shouldn't dance around the subject. I already know why you are angry, why not just admit it? Akamoto stated as Yuna's eyes stared at the ground. Soon they looked up at the headmaster. With slightly narrowed eyes, she spoke. Why? Why was he chosen over me? I have been a part of the committee since I joined this school. My grades are the highest in the school. I have done everything I can to help both the teachers and students. So why? Yuna asked as Akamoto felt for the girl. It's not you, Yuna-chan. The school board has grown impatient with the issue. Akamoto explained. Even though she listened, she didn't like it. She felt that she was the better choice for the job. She wouldn't allow this delinquent to ruin her school. That's why I want you to help Naruto tomorrow by introducing him to the committee, Akamoto asked her, as she looked at him and exclaimed. What? With Naruto? Wait a second, you're still a student? Naruto asked as he stared at the blonde nurse in surprise. Who then nodded her head, yes. That's surprising. Yes, I'm actually studying at a college hospital in the next town over to become a doctor, Shizuka said as she reached over her desk as she sipped some tea that she made for the two. Her fellow blonde actually came in looking for the 3 students he dropped by about 20 minutes ago. Soon after he had left, the 3 students had woken up. Shizuka tried to ask them some question, but they were surprisingly kept their mouths shut. Although, she did wonder why those 3 students' eyes kept darting downward like that. Maybe they were just shy. So you're studying to become a doctor. But why did you become a nurse at this school? Wouldn't that eat up your free time? Naruto questioned since in his mind it would have been better to just study full-time. He was curious as to the reason why though. Oh, you see, my best friend lives in town. Due to the circumstances with her job, she won't be able to take care of it or pay the bills while she is away. So she asked me to help her take care of it in exchange for living there. Shizuka explained her situation that she was currently in. Naruto just sat there as he listened to the nurse. After she finished talking, he then decides to comment on a few things. That seems just as Naruto started to talk, the door slammed. The 2 people turned to look who it was to see the busty red-headed teacher, Kyoko Hayashi. And she was mad. Oh, hello, Hayashi-sensei. Don't you have a class to teach or something? Naruto asked as both he and Shizuka were wondering why she was there. Normally I would be teaching a class, but seeing that it's 3:45 in the afternoon. Naruto flinched slightly, seeing as he pretty much skipped all of his classes. Great, his mother will tear his ear off. I'm pretty sure you have some explaining to do, young man. Naruto groaned, seeing as he had no excuse for missing all those classes other than pure laziness, and just having other things on his mind. He was Ed. I am sorry! Shizuka yelled as she stood up, bowing to her senpai, who looked shocked at the sudden proclamation by the nurse. It's actually my fault for Naruto-kun missing class. Naruto looked at Shizuka with an eyebrow raised at the honorific attached to his name. But he decided to let that slide, seeing it as unimportant at the moment. Care to explain, Shizuka-sensei? Kyoko asked as she adjusted her glasses. Shizuka nodded her head before she explained herself to her senior coworker. Earlier in the day, Naruto came in to get some rest because he was tired. But at the time I hadn't prepared the room at the time. Surprisingly, I had quite a lot of the visitors today. Shizuka commented as both Kyoko and Naruto's eyes fell down to the large woman's chest, as they decided to jiggle in place. Shizuka didn't seem to notice as she continued to talk. So Naruto-kun decided to help me out by helping me organize and put away my things. Then I decided to repay him with some tea and bread that my friend dropped off, and we had lost time while we talked. Kyoko stayed quiet as her eyes studied, the nurse with a critical eye, before turning her gaze to her student. Uzumaki-sen, is what Murakawa-sensei said true? Well, yeah, pretty much. Naruto stated, despite the fact that he was wandering the hall for a good 15 minutes, eat lunch on the roof that was meant to be restricted to students. Not to mention he had beaten up 3 students, and then was forced to go to the headmaster by his senpai, who was also his underling. There wasn't a need to let his homeroom teacher know about that. I see. I expect you to actually show up to your classes. I'd rather you skip out on all your classes and flank out. Don't let this become habit, young man, Kyoko stated with a stern glance before she turned around and proceeded out the door. Shizuka sighed in relief, turning towards the blonde student with an apologetic smile on her face. I'm really sorry for getting you in trouble, Naruto-kun. Shizuka bowed at the student, causing Naruto's eyes to fall on her breast for a quick second before focusing back on the nurse's face. Don't worry about Murakawa-sensei. It's also partially my fault. I should have been more aware of the time we spent talking, Naruto said as Shizuka brightened up, happy that she wasn't fully to blame for a student skipping class. I should get going, everyone probably left already, Naruto commented as his mind drifted off to Siko, who he usually walked home with, seeing that it's been well over an hour since school ended. He highly doubts that she would have been willing to wait for him. Meanwhile, just outside the school gates, Siko was currently texting with her father. Looking at the time, she wondered why Naruto was so late. Okay then, if you ever want to, you can come back anytime, Naruto-kun, Shizuka said as she waved goodbye to her. Was he her student? No, that doesn't make any sense. As Shizuka continued this train of thought, Naruto exited the room. He wasn't going to lie, he did enjoy the busted blonde company. Although she was a bit of an airhead, wasn't a bad thing in his mind. Ring ring. Hearing a familiar tone, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, hearing his mother yelling, filled him with dread. What's this I hear about you missing class, on the first day of school, no less? Me. Chapter 4, the second day and the start of something more. At the Takagi estate. Again. Soichiro yelled at the top of his lungs, as he stood in front of a rather sweaty and tired Naruto. Right now the two were currently engaging in some rather intense training in the backyard of the Takagi estate, testing Naruto's swordsmanship skill. Due to Soichiro's rather hectic schedule, it limited his involvement with Naruto's training and just seeing him in general. The older male was rather surprised when Kushina barged into his home and told him Naruto needed some additional training. Not wanting to deal with a rather angry Kushina, he had agreed to go along with it. It's been over 3 hours since then, the two have been training non-stop. And if Soichiro was completely honest with himself, he was rather tired as well. Kushina-chan, I know that you're upset over Naruto-kun skipping class, Yuriko stated as she and Kushina sat at a table nearby, watching over the two trained as the two enjoyed while enjoying some tea and cookies in the garden. Damn straight I am. Kushina raising her voice, showing her anger. I told that boy not to get into any trouble. This was his chance for a clean slate without all the drama from his previous school. And he goes and does something like this. I even had to apologize to his homeroom teacher over the phone. He's lucky that she was willing to look past this incident. As I said, I know you are upset over this, but don't you think this a little much? Yuriko asked as she looked over Naruto getting his hand smacked with a wooden sword that was held by her husband. She couldn't believe that they were still going strong. How is this considered a punishment again? Naruto-kun might be a stamina freak. I highly doubt even he can go multiple hours of intense training without something to drink, or the embarrassment he will feel getting his ass handed to him. Kushina stated as she downed her tea in a single gulp. Before she moved to refill it, Yuriko let out a nervous chuckle before stating. Is that why we are having tea out here? Yuriko eyes the tea in her hand, as her friend nodded as she snatched another cookie from the tray. Yep, what better way to punish someone than by denying them something so important? Kushina answered with a chipper tone that was overheard by the two males just a couple of feet away from them. Then why am I being punished? Soichiro thought as he glared at Kushina at tormenting both him and Naruto by sipping the tea that he had imported from England to enjoy. I really hate that woman right now, Naruto said as panted with his hands on his knees trying to stabilize with breathing. Kushina saw this and screamed out. No slacking off. The two then resumed their training with a reluctant glare. Yuriko felt sorry for her husband and Naruto. Although, the training that Kushina putting Naruto through was doing him good? I just noticed something. Where is Saya-chan? Usually, she would have joined and had some tea with us, at least for a little bit. Kushina commented as the pink-haired girl was nowhere in sight. Yuriko smiled. Oh, she knew where her daughter was all right. Well, Saya is studying up on her science lessons at the moment. She had felt it was her weaker subject, so she wanted to brush up on that before lessons officially begin. Yuriko said, knowing the hidden meaning will go over her friend's head. And it did. Saya-chan is really a hard-working girl, isn't she? I don't know how she could stay in her room all day studying, especially on something as boring as science of all things. That subject was so boring back in school. Kushina pouted as a headache began to come her way, just thinking about how hard it was back in the day. Oh great, now she felt old. And didn't you get a job as what, exactly? Yuriko commented with an eyebrow raised. As Kushina's eyes began to look at anything else but hers as she muttered shut up just as Kushina proceeded to down her tea once again, to avoid further embarrassment, nature took its course. I have to go check something real quick. Kushina tried to seem discreet about her mighty need to use the bathroom. Bathroom is in the same place as always, Yuriko stated as she reached for a cookie. Kushina left with a glare before she hurried to relieve herself. After a few moments, the lady of the house turned towards the two males. Okay, she went, you two can take a break. Both Soichiro and Naruto breathed a sigh of relief, as Naruto sat down on the ground with his eyes closed. While the redhead left, Soichiro eyed the way the woman left until he was satisfied that she was gone. I think I will have to call it a day, Naruto-kun. I still have a lot of stuff to finish before my trip to Tokyo next week. I'll see you Sunday morning for your lessons, Soichiro said. As he walked away, he stopped to patting the young man's shoulder. Try not to get into too much trouble while you're at school for both our sakes. Yes sir, Naruto said as he tried to calm his heart rate. Soichiro nodded his head as he started to walk away. Naruto sighed as he tried to enjoy the few moments of peace he has until his mother comes back. Yuriko watched the blonde sitting on the ground trying to catch his breath. She decided to give the boy some mercy, grabbing a cup of tea and proceeded to walk over to him. Hearing someone walking over to him, opening his right eye slight to see that it was Yuriko. But his eyes focused on one thing and it wasn't her breast. Here, Yuriko said, as Naruto muttered a quick thank you as he began to sip the tea, making sure not to burn his tongue as he did. As the young man drank his tea, he noticed the older women staring at him. His eyes darted in the other direction. When he did, it caused Yuriko pouted slightly as she sighed. She couldn't help but feel disappointed, as her relationship with her BFF's son had taken an awkward turn due to some events months back. During the charity event that he and mother were invited to by Yuriko, things changed. Unfortunately, Saya was forced to help one of her friends with his assignments when his grades had fallen dangerously low. Her husband Soichiro was unable to go due to being in Osaka for work. For Kushina, she had gotten food poisoning from some bad seafood that she had gotten with some coworkers. Normally, Naruto would have stayed by his mother's side and take care of her. But she had insisted that he go for the both of them. With a groan, he went to the event with the fancy clothes his mother had picked out for him. At first, it was okay, the only misshape was a slightly dejected Yuriko. Then it slowly degenerated with each wine glass that Yuriko drank. And well, Naruto didn't think it was appropriate, at the moment. Especially, when that person was standing right next to him. Yeah, it was awkward for him. So, Naruto-kun, why did you skip school? You know that you are considered on thin ice after what happened? Yuriko asked after a minute of silence. Naruto sighed. He was tired of being asked this question. Although, the young man was willing to admit that he was at fault here. Well, shit happened, Naruto stated as Yuriko smacked him on top of his head. Cause him to grunt in pain, he at least had the decency to look sorry. Naruto-kun? I think we should talk about it, Yuriko said as she reached her hand to place it on Naruto's shoulder, who tensed up a bit from the touch. Naruto couldn't help don't feel awkward as he wasn't used to being touched by anyone that didn't also try to punch his face in. I don't think it's a good idea right now, Naruto said, his eyes on the now empty cup of tea. A part of him rather continues the Spartan-like training that his mother is putting him through, rather than deal with his now awkward relationship with Yuriko. Do you hate me? Yuriko asked as Naruto stood silent for a moment as he muttered, no, then why won't you talk to me about? Cause what isn't something exactly normal, Naruto stated heatedly to Yuriko, who understood the situation they're in but couldn't help but feel sad. What we did was something that shouldn't have happened. What would happen if Saya or Soichiro found out? I don't even want to know what would happen if Kasen finds out. Yuriko flinched. She knows what would happen if Kushina found out. It wouldn't be good. I'm done talking about this, Naruto said. Yuriko started at him, saddened look on her face. Sighing to herself, but just before she left she leaned forward and kissed his cheek, causing the young man to tense up. As her lips left its mark she whispered, I understand how you feel, Naruto-kun, but I don't regret what we did. Enjoy your break while you can, after all, your mother isn't finished with you just yet. Yuriko then left the boy by himself. As she did, her eyes darted to the side as she noticed something. She thought to herself as she wondered what to do now. Naruto watched the older women leave. With a click of his tongue he hated himself right now, as his eyes had wandered for a moment. He really hated his teenage hormones at times. Feeling his stress building up, Naruto just resigned himself to lying on the ground as he watched the clouds move across the sky. Who knows how long he had to relax until his mother came back. What was taking her so long? With Kushina. Damn it, Yuriko! Why did you have the bathroom so far away? Kushina complained as she was currently walking back from her business. As the redhead wandered the halls, she couldn't help but wonder how much Soichiro and Yuriko made to have a large estate like this. She knows Yuriko was a stockbroker for Wall Street, but she never found out what Soichiro did. It must have been important if he had all those business trips, she finds out later. Kushina was so deep in thought that she didn't notice the person coming out of the room in front of her and ended up colliding with them. The two people managed to avoid falling down. "Oh, I'm sorry about that." Kushina quickly apologized, not getting a good look at the person, who waved her off. "No, it's okay, Kushina-san?" Hearing the person say her name caused her eyes to dart towards their face. "Oh, hello, Tetsudora-san," Kushina said with a slight bow as she quickly recognized the person in front of her. Tetsudora gave a nervous laugh as he bowed in turn. God, he felt like he was a high schooler right now. "How you been? It's been a long time since I last saw you." "I have been rather busy. Soichiro has me working rather hard at the moment. We have a huge meeting coming up. So we still have quite a bit to do," Tetsudora stated as Kushina nodded her head. "You're busy? Then I really shouldn't keep you," Kushina said as she walked around the mail. Before she got 3 feet away, he called out. "No, I have some time to talk, if you don't mind," Tetsudora replied as Kushina sighed deeply, seeing her chance to escape flew away. It wasn't like she hates the guy, quite the opposite actually. He was a rather nice guy, someone she doesn't mind talking to when there are a crowd of people around. The way he looks at her, while not really perverted in nature. It was more of let's go out and fall in love. Kushina had been the receiver of that look since they first met last year. She didn't know how to deal with the guy. Normally, she could just say she wasn't interested or wasn't looking for a relationship. If they didn't get the hint, she could let her fist do the talking. But see that Tetsudora was Soichiro's best friend, it made things rather awkward. "Oh, okay," Kushina said, trying not to seem disinterested, as the two started talking. Kushina tried to find a way to disengage from the conversation but was unable to. "So I'm Kushina-san." Tetsudora seemed to be nervous as he began to shift in place for a bit. "Please, don't ask me out," Kushina mentally groaned as she had a feeling what he was going to do. Luck seemed to shine in her favor as from behind Tetsudora, a pink-haired girl walked by. "Oka-san, when did you get here?" Saya said, surprised to see the older woman at her house. Kushina looked at Saya in pure happiness, one from seeing her and for unknowingly getting her an out. "Saya-chan." Kushina quickly walked around Tetsudora, who looked dejected at the sudden interruption, while the redhead hugged the pink-haired girl, who accepted her hug. "We've been here for hours. You would have known if you weren't studying all the time." "Studying, yeah?" Saya's eyes darted to the side until she realized what Kushina said. "Wait, is Naruto-kun here?" "Yeah, but he's busy at the moment." Kushina said it was Saya let out a small "oh." Kushina felt bad as she saw Saya's sad face. It made her feel like she had kicked Saya's puppy. "Well, if you just give me 30 more minutes with him, I'll send him up to you so that the two of you can hang out." "Really?" Saya asked happily before she regained control her emotion. "I mean not that." Kushina couldn't help but let out a chuckle from Saya's mood shift. Despite how she acts sometimes, she still was a 14-year-old girl. "Are you two staying for dinner?" "Huh. Well, I don't see why not. It's been a while since I had some of your chief's food," Kushina said before she turned her head slightly to see if Tetsudora left. "He left the moment we started talking," Saya said as she watched Kushina breathe a sigh of relief. "I don't get it, Oka-san. I know that you're not interested in Tetsudora-san, but you really just say it." "Saya-chan, it's complicated. And I don't need advice from a 14-year-old that hasn't even been on a date," Kushina retorted as Saya turned red from the comment. How do you know I never been on a date?" Saya asked, embarrassed from the comment, as Kushina just gave her deadpan expression. "Honey, if you went on a date, then your mother would be on the phone telling that her baby is finally growing up, not to mention your father would have Naruto threaten the poor boy since he could get into trouble with the police if he did it himself. And I don't think hanging out with my son would count as a date." "Well, Saya found herself lost for words. Kushina then took this moment to leave the pink-haired girl. After all, she still had a son to punish. Soon, she had found herself back at the backyard area of the estate. Her eyes narrowed as she realized that Yuriko and Soichiro were not there, which meant nobody was watching Naruto. She let out a small growl as she quickly surveyed the area and soon found her son asleep on the ground. Seeing this, her anger left her, slowly walked over to her son's sleeping form. "I guess I went overboard again, huh?" Kushina said out loud as she watched her son let out a small snore. A small smile appeared on her face as couldn't help find her son's sleeping face quite handsome. Kushina sat down on the ground next to him, gently lifting his head off the ground and placed it on her lap. She noted her son tense up before relaxing as if he recognized her touch. When he relaxed, she started to stroke his hair. "You've done well," Kushina said, as she enjoyed the small moment they had together. Saya will have to wait to get her son, it seemed. Next day at Fujimi High School. The next day, Naruto had arrived early to school with permission from Akamoto. He was allowed in by one of the janitors who was in the process of leaving. With a slight bow, he entered the campus without trouble, walked into the main building with purpose. Reading the text he had received from the older man, he arrived on the 4th floor of the main building. Normally, this floor contains the headmaster's office, the assistant headmaster office, and faculty office, but now, Naruto looks at the wooden door with a nameplate that said, Disciplinary Committee Captain Naruto Uzumaki. Just reading that brought a slight grin on his face, tracing the plate before he reached down to open the door to his office. His grin had grown in size as he found out that Akamoto had provided the office fully furnished, a large black wooden desk sitting at the back of the room. Behind the desk was a large black leather chair. On both sides of the room held 2 matching bookcases, empty of course, a metal file cabinets. What was more surprising was the fact the room had 2 black leather sofas with a glass coffee table in the center. Damn, Akamoto, Naruto muttered as he did wonder how much the furniture cost, for about a second. Before Naruto lay down on the sofa, as he did, Naruto released the content groan at how comfy the piece of leather was. Deciding to check the rest of the room, Naruto, with great reluctance, got off the sofa and checked his desk. Opening up the drawers, he found them empty except for a note. Naruto-kun, I put this letter here hoping you would find it. The next couple of days will be hectic for both you and me. I already got 3 complaints about you, which is surprising because I expect more. Dash. Well, you too, Naruto commented as he sat down on his chair to continue reading. It was surprisingly simple to get you this office since the last person to have that office was the guidance counselor before he was arrested. Now I know what you are thinking, and it wasn't something like that. He actually was selling some alcohol, adult magazines and cigarettes to some of the students. Although, it wouldn't be surprised if he had actually committed those types of things with some of the more promiscuous students. Gross. But rest assured, we have replaced the furniture, except for the file cabinets. I know I have asked for a lot of you, Uzumaki-kun. But I know that you are capable of doing great things. Don't let your past mistakes blind your path moving forward. Naruto stared at the letter with stoic expression before crumpled the letter up and thrown it in the trash. Just then he saw a yellow piece of paper hanging out from the file cabinet. Walking over, he opened it to see a bunch of folders, at least 40. Looking at the label, he noticed that the one he opened was labeled HL. Picking one at random, opening it up and began to read its content. Issei second year class 2D labeled as a problem student by 3 teachers must be watched carefully, known to peep on female students changing, watching student from the bottom of stairs to see under their skirts. Is also a suspect in a break-in at the female dorms last year that resulted in over 50 stolen undergarments? Naruto read, skimming over some details before he commented. What the hell is this? Looking at the trash, Naruto reached in and grabbed the crumpled letter to see if something else was written on it. On the back of the letter read, Also, I took the liberty of asking the teachers about known and potential troublemakers in the school that was recommended by the teachers. I hope this will be of some assistance to you. Well, that explains it, Naruto said as he read the document over again to see that the second year was labeled as a sexual deviant by pretty much all the female teacher in the school. The male's teachers didn't seem to see him as a problem. Something felt off, so he grabbed a handful of the files and sat down on the sofa, decided to read over each file individually. Time skip. Uzumaki. Hearing his name, Naruto turned to see 5 people flooding his office. You need something, and aren't you guys rather early to be in school? Naruto spoke with a raised eyebrow and look of confusion on his face. Early, it's 7:45, you idiot. The girl in front yelled, who looked rather familiar and pissed. Really? The blonde asked as he pulled out his phone. Wow, he been here for more than an hour. So why are you here? Senpai? Wondering who and why these people are here, and why they were being led by the older student. It's Chiba Yuna, I'm a 3rd year and we met literally yesterday, Yuna stated as Naruto's memory was jogged. He remembered the person who was quick to try to get him in trouble. Oh yeah? Naruto stood up, stretching his body from sitting for so long, turning his head. But that doesn't explain who they are. Gesturing to the group. This is the disciplinary committee. Recruitment hasn't started yet, so you're the only 1st year so far. But I thought we should have at least had a meeting to discuss what we plan on doing moving forward. Not to mention to introduce you to everyone. This is Yuna. Lip continued to move before Naruto tuned her out, his eyes moving towards the 5 upperclassmen. Just 5 people in total, 2 boys and 3 girls, including her. Not a lot of people. It was just barely enough to keep a small club opened. One of the boys had a pair of glasses with slightly spiky brown hair, while the other male was rather average looking with his black hair and also looked like he didn't want to be there at the moment. The girls surprisingly had blonde hair, and the green eye looked rather out of place for a member of his committee. The other one had a pair of glasses with a long black that was braided. So Captain, why are you here? This office was closed off since the incident with the guidance counselor. Yuna said before she closed in on Naruto with an icy glare. She spoke. Why are you here? I'm here because this is my new office. The school board has given me this in exchange for my enrollment to Fujimi. Naruto answered his senpai's question, who glared intensified. Ignoring that, he walked back to his desk, motioned the group to sit. Which the group eagerly did, testing the sofa comfort level. Looking out of the corner of his eye, he noticed that Yuna refused to sit even though there was a seat left open for her. Hey Uzumaki-san, what's this? One of the two guys spoke up, picking up a random file on the coffee table and read its content again to himself. After a couple, he eyebrow rose in confusion. He ended up reading the contents of the file again, making sure that he was sure of what he read. This doesn't seem right. Naruto already had an idea about what he was going to say but decided to stay silent and allow someone in the room to question. What do you mean, Izuki-kun? One of the girls asked. Izuki looked up with a slight frown on his face. Well, Misako, this file is about one of my classmates. Izuki said. The thing I said doesn't make any sense, it doesn't sound like him. When he finished, he handed the file over to her. She reached over and grabbing it, reading it. Let's see, oh, this is about Kisa-san. The blonde girl named Misako said, commented, reading it in depth. This is utter bull. Really, why is that? Naruto questioned the girl as Yuna glared at him. Before she can reprimand him, the girl spoke up. No offense to the person who wrote this, but they don't know anything about Kisa-san. Sure, he is a bit of a flirt, loud mouth, and tends sleep in class. You're not helping the guy's case, you know. Naruto and Yuna thought of the same, although the two stayed silent, allowing Misako to continue speaking. Despite all this, Kisa-san is a good person. He will never do what is said about him in the file. The girl said as Izuki nodded his head in agreement. Really, well then, Naruto said as he held his hand out asking for the file. Once it was handed, Naruto scanned the file. It says here that Kisa has been known for getting into brawls with other students, not to mention harassing female students. Is it true? No, it's kind of true. Kisa does get into fights mostly because some of the troublemakers keep targeting him. Izuki stated, defending his classmate. Naruto stayed silent before he raised another question. What about him harassing the female students on campus? Naruto said as the girl from before slammed her hands on his table. Hell no, Kisa might like to flirt with the girls in school but harass them. As if any girl in school would. So, do you a thing for Kisa-san? Naruto interrupted the girl's mid-rant. What know you am? Well, that answers that, Naruto muttered to himself, even though everyone was able to hear him, making the girl flush red from embarrassment. So Izuki-senpai? Do you believe that Kisa is a person? No, actually I would believe Kisa-san is the one who helps keep the others in my class in check. Without him, the other students would be a lot worse. Izuki spoke, the tone in his voice showed how much as he hated being in class. I see, Naruto stated before closing his eyes in thought. After a moment he walked over to his cabinet, opening it up and grabbing 5 folders, giving them to Yuna, who looks confused for a moment before Naruto said with a sigh, hand them out. Fine, Yuna muttered before she gave everybody a folder. Okay, can everyone read what's in their folder? And just like with Kisa-san, tell me, do you consider the person that is written in that file to be a delinquent? Naruto said as everyone began to look over their file. Soon everyone had their answer. So 4 of you say that the person that you had is innocent, while 2 of you, Naruto looked at Yuna and Izuki, say that the person is considered guilty. Naruto walked over to his desk and sat down on his chair. I was afraid of this. The blonde commented as the 6 people in looked confused before Izuki raised his hand and asked what he meant. It means that the teachers and students have a different take on who the real problem students are. Naruto reached into his phone and saw that class about to start, with a click of his tongue, placing it back into his pocket. So does that mean these files are worthless? The braided-haired girl named Kyo asked as she was flipping through another file. He kept silent, his eyes focused on the office door. For all about 5 seconds. No, that's not necessarily true, Naruto said before he grabbed a file, before showing the disciplinary committee. Does everyone here believe that this person on this file is a problem that needs dash? Naruto didn't get to finish as all the females in the room yelled. Yes. With an eyebrow raised and then turned it over to see that it was a file on Issei. The bias against the second year was rather obvious. Although, from what he had seen, the things that were written in the guy's file, he could see why the females in the school would hold a grudge on the guy. Hayate-san is a rather open about his perverted desires and considered in an unfavorable light amongst the female population of the school. Izuki gave the younger male some insight about the person in question. With a roll of his eye, he throws the file back onto the desk. Okay, bad example there then. How about Kisa? Naruto questioned, when Yuna decided to speak up about the man. Well, duh. The number of fights he gets into can't be overlooked. Yuna commented as the Izuki and the girl from earlier defended Kisa. With his hands running across his face as the room devolved into a shouting match arguing about him being an actual delinquent, or a victim of circumstance. This went on for a few minutes until Naruto's patience reached its limits. "Shut up!" Naruto shouted as he slammed his hands on his desk. The room fell silent as the disciplinary committee eyes looked towards the committee head with wide eyes and surprised look on their face, except Yuna, whose eyes narrowed as if to challenge him. Ignoring that, Naruto looks at his phone to see that class would begin in about 10 minutes. "Okay, look, the class is going to start soon, let's just end this," and Naruto said before a girl with round glasses and braided hair raised her hand up and spoke up. "Uzumaki-san, we still haven't planned out our patrols?" Naruto stopped reaching for his bag when she spoke. "Patrol, huh? Oh, yeah, right, there's that too." Naruto muttered to himself, clasping his hands behind his neck. If he was honest, he just wanted to get some sleep and not deal with these people. "Tell me, how do you guys handle it last year?" "Well, we usually have the third years take patrol during homeroom and first period," the other guy not named Izuki said before Naruto got up and said, "Good, let's go with that." The first year then quickly making his way to and then out the door before he could be stopped by anyone. Leading the committee, a bit stupefied, the guy looked over to Yuna with a concerned look on his face. "Chiba-senpai, are sure about this guy?" The last male student whose names escaped Naruto spoke softly to the third year, who was busy clenching her fist with her eyes burrowing at the door. "It's not like we have a choice in the matter," Yuna stated with a click of her tongue before she examined the room once again. "Well, what if we discussed it with the headmaster?" and the male offered but was soon shut down by Yuna. "Yeah, right? I already tried that. I even tried talking to the other teachers about this, no luck there," Yuna said as grabbed the file on Kisa, which was lying on Naruto's desk. "Well, honestly," Izuki spoke up, "I don't think that he is that bad." This statement caused everyone to focus their attention on him. Yuna glared at Izuki, who simply stared back at the angry girl. "Excuse me," Yuna yelled. She then walked up to him despite the fact that she was slightly shorter than him, fixing him an icy cold glare as she spoke. "Aren't you being a bit idiotic if you are willing to accept him as the leader of the committee? Aren't you being a bit closed-minded, Chiba-san?" Izuki stated back, not willing to give the girl an inch. "And not to be rude, but you're not exactly the easiest person to deal with either. What makes you think that you deserve to be the person in charge? Just because you have been here the longest doesn't exactly make you qualified to lead." "Oh, so you rather follow a delinquent than me, is that it?" Yuna growled at Izuki. That caused the people in the room to feel anxious. Even Izuki felt a tad nervous. Thankfully he didn't show it. "All I'm saying is to give him the benefit of the doubt, Chiba-san," Izuki said. The two stared at each other when Yuna let out a TSK before she walked away. When she left the room, she was grinding her teeth and muttering to herself. "Just wait and see," Yuna muttered before her hand reached underneath into her school top and pulled out a file. "I'll prove that I'm right." What she didn't notice was Naruto standing behind her and watched her walk off before going back into his office. "Well, I guess we should get Uzumaki-san?" Kyo stopped talking and looked towards the opening door, surprised to see him back all of a sudden. "Sorry, I forgot to mention this idea I have," Naruto spoke up, which in turn got the members' attention. "And what would that be?" Izuki said, pushing up his glasses. "Everyone here has been in a part of this committee since last year, correct?" Naruto questioned, getting a nod from everyone that was inside the room, confirming it. "Okay, that means you guys know more about the students than I do. Asking you to read and compare the students on the file that I have would be too much to ask. So make a list of students that you feel or know that broke the rules, based on both yours and the teacher's informations. And by using that, you'll narrow down the people that are considered a bigger problem by both sides." The Misako managed to get his reasoning rather quickly. Seems like she did belong after all. Telling everyone to meet up back at the office at lunch, the group left after saying goodbye. Staying behind, Naruto walked back to his desk and stared at the contents on top. Soon he gathers the file up and placed them back where they belong and left, not wanting to have his ear chewed off by his mother again. At Class 1C. The class was normal for the most part for Rei Miyamoto. After the assembly yesterday, she was shocked to find out that her desk mate was actually the head of the disciplinary committee. Well, to be fair, she wasn't the only one. There were already rumors flying that he blackmailed the school board to give him that position. Another rumor was that he was an heir of a Yakuza family, and was given control of the school as a form of training for when he becomes the head of the Yakuza. Rei never understood why people would gossip about something rather stupid. Why was it a problem that he was the leader of the committee? He didn't seem like a bad guy, although she only knew him for about 15 minutes, give or take. She would admit to being a bit unnerved by him. His eyes seemed to pierce her whenever they made eye contact. Well, skipping class didn't help his case either. Hayashi-sensei was pissed when it was time for her class and found out that he ended skipping all the classes up to that point. Apparently, she went looking for him, and according to her friends, he was found at the nurse's office on top of the new nurse doing adult stuff. Then after that, the rumors seemed to vary to person. Shaking her head, feeling a bit flushed, think that Naruto and Shizuka were caught in the middle of bad thoughts. Soon the door to the room opened to reveal the blonde-haired male that was the talk of the school. Hearing the go silent was the norm for Naruto at this point of his life. Thinking nothing of it, he closed the door behind him and walked to his desk. Giving a slight head nod as he mutters a good morning to Rei, he sat down before he threw his head back, running his hands across his face. Are you okay? Hearing Rei's voice asked with a hint of curiosity, Naruto just gave a small groan before he removed his hands from his face. Yeah, just tired is all, Naruto said, as reached into his bag and removing a textbook and a notebook. Rei was going to try to start a conversation with Naruto, but the door opened once again to reveal Kyoko. Okay, homeroom is in season, Kyoko stated as she quickly walked to the podium. Her eyes scanned the room until she noticed Naruto. Rei noted the slight scowl on her face when she stared at Naruto, made the rumors had a bit of truth to them. Her eyes scanned the room again before the scowl deepened. Okay, now who is on duty today? It's... The blonde student quick tuned out the rest of homeroom and the next period class. His mind was on something else more important, in his opinion. The lack of students in the class. Yesterday he made some note that some of the more troublesome students would skip the first day of class as a tradition of sorts. Normally from what he heard they would have returned the next day, but he noted that about a total of 6 students were missing from his class. It wasn't likely that they were late since they were missing yesterday as well. Briefly, wondering if it was the same in the other classes in school. A part of him wanted to leave class in order to investigate right then and there. However, with the threat of another beating from his mother prevented that. With a click of his tongue, Naruto quietly listened to Kyoko opening statements. Time seemed to move slowly for him. Until finally he the bell signaling the end of homeroom, and Kyoko then left to do whatever she needed to do. He had 5 minutes at most. He quickly shot out the room, leaving his stuff and ignoring the stares from his peers. Taking nothing more than a couple seconds to scan the classrooms and made a mental note as he did. Soon he finished. There were no doubt the students were either skipping another day of school or they were extremely late. Most likely trying to start another tradition. With a groan he quickly made his way to class. Looks like this would be a lot tougher than he thought. Lunchtime in Naruto's office. First things first, I want to thank everyone for coming back here, especially during lunch, Naruto said, as his office was once again filled with the committee members, who had gathered on the sofas, while Naruto sat from behind his desk. They waved off, and before the female blonde raised her hand so that she can speak. It's no problem, Naruto-san, Misako said as Naruto raised an eyebrow at the use of his first name but didn't care much to speak about it. Can I ask, why is that person standing next to you? Who is she? The girl continued to speak as she gestured to the purple-haired girl who was standing to his right. The group of upperclassmen couldn't help but stare at the rather attractive girl that was standing next to him. The female blonde couldn't help but feel jealous about how pretty and smooth her skin looked, wondering if that was natural. She just had this aura about her that attracts attention to her. Oh, sorry, do you want to introduce yourself or do you want me to? Naruto asked Siko, who gave a small smile showing that she had it covered as she introduced herself to the people in the room. Hello, my name's Busujima Siko. It's pleasure to meet everyone. Siko said as she bowed, causing her breast to jiggle in response, causing the male not named Izuki to stare with before he was smacked for staring by the Misako. It's nice to meet you too, Busujima-san. So why are you here? Are you interested in joining the committee? Izuki questioned Siko, who simply stayed quiet as Naruto took over for her. Siko is not going to join the committee and she is here because of me, Naruto stated as Siko turned towards with her eyebrow raised. What makes you think that I wouldn't join? Siko commented as Naruto's head turned to look at her. Are you going to join? Naruto asked with a look of skepticism on his face. Siko shook her head and with a simple nope, if you're not going to join then why comment as if you were? The look of annoyance on his face was evident. This continues back and forth between Naruto and Siko as the upperclassmen watched the two argue. Although, they can tell that it wasn't serious as Siko's face held that grin that said I'm winning this argument, while Naruto's face just had a look of annoyance and frustration over the situation. Poor guy was going to having a rough week. So why are you here, Busujima-san? The blonde girl of the group questioned. Izuki raised an eyebrow at her before sighing. He already knew where this was going. Oh, I'm here to have lunch with Naruto-kun, Siko said as she gestured to the 2 bentos that were currently on Naruto's desk. The female blonde eyes glimmered at the suffix that Siko used, as she watched Siko unwrap the cloth that held the bento, proceeding to give Naruto his. As she watched Siko tell Naruto about the new recipe that she wanted to try, as Naruto just silently listened. Should we start the meet? The average male didn't get to speak any further as the Misako quickly reached over to him and began pinching his side. The poor boy releases a silent scream of pain as he gave Izuki a look to help him. Only for him to pretend not to notice and just stared at the wall as he heard the sounds of tapping on the other couch. Busujima-san, how do you know Uzumaki-kun? Kyo stated as she was just as interested. Misako quickly gave her a thumbs up, who gave one back. Looks like the girls will have some juicy gossip for the week. We went to junior high together, and Siko said before Misako jumped from her seat and screamed out a question. And are you guys dating? Huh? Siko felt very confused at the moment from the abrupt question. Looking back towards Naruto, seeing that he was simply eating the food that she cooked for him. Sending him a flat stare for starting without her and turned towards the blonde female. But just as she opened her mouth to speak. No, we are not dating. Siko is a good friend. Naruto said as he placed down the bento that he had just finished. More like the only friend, Siko said as Naruto sent her a small glare before sighing to himself. Well, she wasn't wrong. Wait, so you're not dating? Misako asked as she and Kyo felt disappointed. As for the average-looking male in the room that perked up at the fact that pretty purple-haired girl was single. Little did he know he had no chance. Nope, we aren't dating, Naruto said, placed down his bento, having finished eating its contents. Now let's get down to business. Did you guys do what I told you to do? Yep. We managed to get a lot of names down. Izuki even went the extra mile and wrote down a lot of extra details as well. The blonde girl cheered as she nudged the male with her elbow. Izuki simply rolled his eyes. Siko stood silently as Naruto walked over to the upperclassmen. They provided the contents that were requested and handed a rather large pile of papers over to Naruto. Her eyes stayed on Naruto as he glanced over the large pile. I didn't expect for it to be this much, Naruto commented, slightly annoyed by the amount the small group had managed to make in a few hours. Yeah, this school has quite the large problem with certain students. Izuki started to speak before he reached over and started to separate the piles into 4 different piles. Naruto's and Siko's interest was piqued as the two noticed some piles were way smaller than other compared to the rest. The 5 of us had some trouble due to the fact that we are in different year, and cliques made looking into certain students harder. But I think we managed to work our way around the situation and managed to get a good amount done. Izuki stated with a bit of pride in voice. Naruto stared at each group of papers in silence when the blonde girl started to talk. We decided to just make a list based on our year, but since it's only the second day we won't really know about the first years that came in. Maybe if we're to get more first-year members they will be able to provide more information. Although that seems very unlikely. Misako ended on a sad note, as a dejected look on the upperclassman's face was evident. Both first years found themselves wondering what they meant until it dawns on them. There were only 6 people in the disciplinary committee, excluding Naruto. And the likelihood of more people joining at the moment was slim. The 2 first years shared a look with each other. Izuki, feeling the tense, then decided to speak up. Silence was too much for his liking. Well, getting back to business. Each pile is divided by, as you know, the year, but also in terms of who belong to certain groups that are Izuki commented before he pauses as he tried to phrase what he was saying. Siko then decides to speak up, having finished her meal. Forgive me if I'm the wrong senpai, and I hope I am. But are you suggesting that they are gangs in the school? Siko stated as Naruto's interest was piqued as he watches Izuki run his hand across his face. Yeah, we do. Izuki reached to one of the piles, pulling out and read its content. While there are a lot of gangs in the school, those are mostly a small group of people just talking smack and don't anything really. But there are 2 major groups you should be aware of though. The first group is led by a student called Mochizuki Yohei. Mochizuki-san is currently a second-year student that hadn't really caused any trouble in school until near the end of the first semester last year, and ended up in a large fight with a smaller gang that had been in the school. Then slowly he started to gain a following and managed to form the second largest gang in school by the end. Izuki said. Naruto walked over to his file cabinet and looked through and managed to find the file on Yohei. It seems that both the students and the teacher agree that he is a problem. If he is currently the leader of one group, who the other person? Naruto asked as the room fell silent like before. The average boy coughed, drawing everyone's attention to him. Actually, nobody really knows who is in charge of the other group. The other boy said before he stood up and rummaged through the cabinet to fish out another file. But the rumor is that it's run by an unknown person outside the school with Kuretake Ryuichi as a figurehead. He was supposed to be the 3rd year but ended up flunking due to missing too many days. Now, he is in class 2G. Naruto rose an eyebrow from the statement but didn't comment on it. Out of the 2 groups, Ryuichi is the most dangerous. It's been suggested by people who are around him that he is mentally unstable. He tends to let his underlings do as they please as long as they don't get in his way. Which they do pretty liberally. It's actually dangerous to be in the hallways when they are multiple of people of the group together. One time they even harassed 2 of the female students here, and well. The glasses-haired student trailed off. Siko quickly got the message. Her eyes went towards Naruto and saw that he looked rather calm, all except for that look in his eyes. What about the teachers? Siko asked. Izuki scoffed, showing how he felt. A small portion of the teachers knew what happens, even the old headmaster. He decided to keep it on a need-to-know basis, not wanting to draw any more bad attention to the school. The coward had been doing that for who knows how long, Izuki said as rage burned in his eyes. The blonde-haired girl put a hand on his shoulder to calm him down. Senpai, tell me something. Naruto started to speak, getting Izuki's attention once more. What are these gang's goals? The question raised a couple of eyebrows. Truth be told, the committee never thought twice about why these group came to be, only that they were a cause for concern. If I were to guess, it's to be in control of the school. The average boy spoke uncertainly as everyone's eyes were drawn to him. Or maybe not. No, I think you're right. Naruto said, to control your school, to prove that you're the better fighter amongst your peers, to be the strongest. To be the one who is in control. That's something I understand. So all this is just for bragging rights. Kyo commented, angered that all the problems that the cause was just a measuring contest. Basically, yes, Naruto stated with a shrug his shoulders, as Izuki chimed in. So, Naruto-kun, how do we proceed from here? He asked. Naruto leaned forward from his seat as he gathered his thoughts. As of this moment, there is nothing we can do but gather as much information as possible. Unlike you, Izuki-senpai, I'm out of the loop. So right now, let's match the people on the list with the people in the files and get at least a face to go with the name. We need to know who is in Mochizuki's and Ryuichi's group. Naruto said as everyone, even Siko, went to work. The rest of the lunch break was spent finding and categorizing various delinquent students of Fujimi. That was recommended by both the teachers and committee members. When the group was finished, the bell had rung to inform everyone that the lunch break was over. I'm actually surprised by how many people the teachers had placed into the files, Misako commented as she was draped over her side of the couch as she fanned herself with one of the files that were currently spread across the coffee table. Tell me about it. Some of them were even in there for something as simple as hair dye. Although it was amusing to find out that you had a file, Izuki-senpai. Kyo commented as she looked over to Izuki, who was sitting across from them, sighed as he rubbed his temple. It's my own fault for dyeing my hair red, Izuki commented as he played with his bang. It's kind of ironic that a member of the disciplinary committee had his hair dyed red. Although he did have his reason for keeping it dyed, and compared to some of the other students, he was pretty minor. It does suit you, to be honest. Even Yuna agreed that it did after she stopped hounding you about it. Misako commented as she noticed both Siko and Naruto were staring out the window down below. What are you two looking at? Everyone turned to look at the duo. Soon Naruto turned around, grabbing his jacket that was hanging over his chair, and left his office. The upperclassman walked over to the window to see two groups of male students starting off at each other. Oh no, this isn't good, Izuki said as everyone took off sans Siko, who started out the window for a few more seconds before following behind. She didn't want to miss this. Outside in the front courtyard. Normal at this time of day, the courtyard would have been empty. Today was an exception to that rule. At this time, two groups of male students, the group on the left, were wearing all black custom uniform except for a few wearing some gold etched on their jackets and shirts, while on the right side were wearing white jackets with their uniform. Overall, they were trying too hard in some people's opinions. What the hell are you doing here, Tetsuya? Shouldn't you be with Mochizuki right now? A male from the group wearing all black called out. He probably misses you. Keeping his bed warmed up is for him. Funny. The one known as Tetsuya spoke. Tetsuya was a fairly lean, muscled individual who had long hair with his long dyed auburn-haired, who was wearing a white tracksuit jacket with a red stripe going down the sleeves, with a blue t-shirt underneath it. 'Cause the same thing could be said about you since Ryuichi isn't here with his right-hand man. It must be his turn today. I hope wasn't too rough with you, 'cause you're going to need all the help you can get. You shouldn't run your mouth, you second-rate, the male in Ryuichi group exclaimed until a loud voice resonated from the courtyard. Hey! What you guys doing? The two groups stopped at the moment to see a blonde-haired student walking towards them. Hee, little Tetsuya called for backup, it seems. A member from Ryuichi group exclaimed. In the other group, one of the members leaned over to Tetsuya and began to whisper to him. When did you have enough time to call for backup? We could have taken them easily. They don't even have their best fighters. Tetsuya leaned back to whisper back at the man. I didn't. I thought he was with Ryuichi. I don't even know who he is. Tetsuya kept quiet before muttering to himself. He doesn't look like any second year. Is he a first year? Naruto came out wearing his jacket properly at the moment, arms crossed over his chest. Glancing over the group, each person looked on edge by his appearance. It's after lunch and you guys decide to come to school now? Wouldn't it be better to just come in on time or not come at all? Naruto questioned, as the group began to grow irritated at being lectured by the young blonde. At that moment, the rest of the Naruto's committee with Siko dragging behind exited from the school building but were too far away to draw the attention to them. We have to stop Naruto-san, he doesn't know what he's getting into. The blonde girl stated out loud as Izuki nodded in agreement. Just as he began to walk towards them, Siko spoke out. What are you going to do? Siko questioned Izuki, who stopped mid-step, turning around to address the first year. I have to stop Naruto from getting himself hurt. He doesn't know what he's getting himself into, Izuki told her, Siko looked befuddled for a moment before she started to laugh, causing the upperclassmen to stare at her stunned. How can you laugh at something so serious, Busujima-san? Naruto-san is going to get hurt if we don't stop this. Misako began to raise her voice at Siko, who seemed willing to abandon her best friend, who was not her boyfriend, which she didn't buy one bit. Sorry. Do you guys believe Naruto-kun is going to get hurt? Siko asked. The looks on their face confirmed that. She was a little shocked until she remembered the fact they don't know who Naruto was. You guys really don't, do you? Well, looks like you'll find out. The group heads turned sharply back towards Naruto. Huh. You better watch your mouth. Considering the fact you don't look familiar. You must be the first years, so let me give you some advice for you. Don't mess with us, got it? The male placed his hand on Naruto's shoulders. Looking at the hand that was touching him, his eye turned towards the older student. Take your hand off me, Naruto asked him as everyone that was in Ryuichi group began to laugh loudly. Even some members from Mochizuki group began laughing at the brash first year. Tetsuya stood quiet. He has watched the blonde student. He then noticed that on his sleeve was a red armband. Isn't that? Tetsuya muttered as the member Ryuichi gang that was next to Naruto stopped laughing. Haha, but you need to learn your place. The man made a fist with his open hand and quickly slugged Naruto in the face. Naruto saw the punch coming and lifting up his arm and blocked it with his forearm. What? Well, I can tell you're not that smart, to begin with, Naruto said as he shoved the man's hand off of his shoulder. But attacking me in the middle of the day, in the front courtyard of the school just after lunch, was every student will be in their classroom as well as the teachers. Not very bright, but I will say that you throw the first punch helped me out a lot. Jabbing his thumb to the school, and he noted that a lot of students was staring at them, out of curiosity. What are you talking about? The gang member asked, slightly worried as an unnerving feeling began to swell in his stomach. Well, because now I can do this, Naruto said as he pulled his arm back and punched the guy in the stomach. The gang member began to clench his stomach with his arms warped around it. He began to gasp for air. Why, you fool, do you know who we are? The male spoke as he shakily began to stand back up, anger clearly written on his face. Yeah, I know, Naruto said as he shrugged his shoulders, as he leaned back as the male student tried to tackle him in hopes to force him to the ground. Naruto grunted from the impact but managed to keep his footing. Naruto brought down his elbow on the student's back once and then again, stunning him. Grabbing a hold of the guy's jacket and forced him to turn towards him, punched him in the face, knocking him down. The gang member groaned in pain and tried to stand up again before Naruto kicked his stomach, sending him tumbling back to the ground. Both gangs looked shocked at what happened. Naruto then began to walk towards them. Since you guys obviously don't know who I'm, given the fact that you didn't bother showing up until today. Uzumaki Naruto, disciplinary captain. I hope everyone here understands that things have changed in this school comparably from the previous one, so try not to cause any trouble because this is your only warning. Don't step out of line. Naruto spoke with a notable edge to his voice, making sure that they got the message. The blonde then raised his foot and stopped the downed student, making him grunt in pain. Understand? Naruto left what he said to settle in as everything was stood quiet between the four parties for a moment before a female student, who had witnessed said exchange, marched out of the building, pushing her way past Siko and the upperclassmen. Hey! What are you Yankees doing out of class? Naruto and the gang members all turned towards the sound of the yelling female coming their way. Oh great, now we have to deal with her, Tetsuya muttered to himself as he pinched his nose. He quickly recognized the female student voice, after being yelled at by said person all last year. Hello Yuna-senpai, good to see you again, Naruto stated as Yuna glared at him with a venomous glare. Shut it! What the hell is going on here? And take your foot off of him, you! Yuna ordered him, and with a click of his tongue he moved his foot but made sure to dig his heel in as he did. The third year must have noticed it as her eye narrowed at him. Deciding to ignore the blonde headache, Yuna turned towards the group of delinquents. You guys got a lot of nerve to do something like that in front of the whole school. Skipping the first day of class and as well as the half of the second day, not even getting into starting a fight on school grounds. When the school board finds out Yuna was cut off mid-lecture when two male teachers approached the scene, one with a scowl on his face and the other with an easygoing smile. Chiba-san, what with all the commotion? The scowling teacher asked as he glanced over the large group of students and easily recognized a lot of them. What are you punks doing out here? It's only the second day of the semester, and you already starting something. It's pathetic, really. Just drop out already, it'll save us the trouble of having to deal with you. Naruto glared at the scowling teacher from the side. The fact a teacher would say something so callous about their students. It looked like the students were not the only problem this school had. The scowling teacher turned his attention back to Yuna. So what happened here, Yuna-san? The teacher asked. Yuna but was unable to answer as Naruto took over. The two groups had arrived at school late. It seemed that they were about to fight before I intervened and stopped them. That's when Yuna-senpai arrived, and soon after you two. Naruto summarized the situation but left out that there was a fight. Tetsuya glanced over at the blonde, who stared back at him. I have already given them a warning, so they are free to go back to class. What the Yuna was once again interrupted by her captain, who held his hand up in front of her. And what make gives you the right to hand out a punishment without the approval of a teacher? The teacher's scowl deepened as he glared at the blonde. If it were up to me. But it isn't up to you, Naruto retorted as he took a step towards the teacher, causing the situation to become tense. I have the ability to give out any punishment that I deem fit, by the authority of the headmaster and school board. So, in other words, I outrank you, sensei. The teacher stayed quiet as he silently ground his teeth, angered that this brat would dare speak to him like this. Naruto looked towards the group once more. You have already received your warning, get to class, Naruto said as he began to walk away towards the rest of the committee in Siko. Yuna and the teachers soon reluctantly followed after a few seconds. The members for Ryuichi and Mochizuki soon left as well, each to their own destination. All except one, Tetsuya stood in the middle of the courtyard alone. He stayed there before he reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple flip phone. Hitting a few buttons, placing it on his ear as it ranged once before the person on the other end picked up. What is it, Tetsuya? A male voice answered the call with an annoyed tone in his voice. Sorry for waking you up, Yohei. But I got some information for you that you need to hear. Are you still coming to school tomorrow? Tetsuya asked his leader as he walked away from the courtyard. What if Naruto was in Highschool of the Dead? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.